All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we have a special Daytona 200 pre-show for you guys this evening with four special guests actually. Uh anyway, I'm here with the absolute amazing Kenny, the Rayman Abbott, CVN, Exhaust Noise. You guys know who he is, right? It's an honor to finally meet Rad Ron himself in person. Those of you may know him, know exactly who he is. I just learned about him a couple of days ago and I knew he was coming on the show. So welcome to the show, Rad Ron.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
I love it, man. I love it. So, listen, gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about. Daytona is not far away. It's always an exciting time of year. It is the main
Amen.
event, it is the cream of the crop of all racetracks in the world, right? That's where
Yes, sir.
everybody wants to come. Everybody, it don't matter who it is,
Uh,
it's Daytona, not Laguna, not none of those. It's Daytona, right? So, understand, Ron. Oh,
and
go ahead,
and
Kenny.
the way I preface all that, right, is is just it goes along with all of the things Daytona. It is Daytona International Speedway, the world's center of racing. And when you put all that together, right, there's no mistaking the enormity of that place, right? And Ron, I know you've been there a couple times, and Simcoe finally went last year. I've been going down there since 1985, listening to Pat Gonzalez, who will be one of our guests, who's been the official voice of Daytona since the 70s, if you could believe it. And if I can, Simcoe, I'd like to get just a couple quick things out of the way for Daytona Speedway, which is really what this show is about, right? The Daytona Supercross is coming up in just a couple weekends, so if you want to get down there, get your tickets for that. The Daytona 200 is coming up, right? So you can buy your tickets for that. You can get all that on the Speedway, and you can actually camp inside Daytona International Speedway. So you can get an RV that backs right up to Lake Lloyd or the International Horseshoe. And to get all that stuff, you just go to DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com to line all that up, get all your tickets, credentials, camping, everything. And so with all that out of the way, dude, I'm so excited. Chris, I know you're coming down. You got some stuff going on with AGV, and you're going to help me out a little bit with that stuff. We're going to do some live shows from down there. And what was your experience like last fall when you came down there for the first time?
Actually, my first time was for the 200, and it was
Mm.
as soon as I stepped foot and arrived on there, I felt the energy and just the past history of it. Right, every racetrack has its own unique feelings to it,
Yeah.
and it was just super overwhelming. Spotty senses were going tingling everywhere. Right, it
Yeah.
was. I mean, when you sit there and you look at it, TV doesn't do it any justice on how big it is and how awesome it is. And when the bikes finally get started and go around, it was absolutely amazing. And speaking of the fall, it was a dream come true to try finally do some commentating with you, Kenny.
Yeah. Good.
It was absolutely proper mega, as I always say. So it's been excited to go back in 2026, just 3 weeks away. I think I can't wait. Let's go. Right.
Yeah. 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 Ron, how about for you? For the first time you were down there, what was that experience like for you?
Dude, it's hard to say, actually, to put it into words, because I had this good friend that kind of ran Michael Jordan Team Suzuki, and he had these all around passes that you could wear in the paddock everywhere. And being a regular Joe that's on the other side of the fence, you're always looking like, man, I wish I was over there. Well, with these paddock passes, I was on the other side. And I am going to pat myself on the back, because I totally believe I invented the selfie, because I was standing there right next to the jumps, and it was Ricky Carmichael, James Bubba Stewart, and Chad Reed, and it was a digital camera, so I had to wait. And as soon as I heard him go, rup, I did chick, and he said click, and then boom, I catch him in the background. So being able to walk down trackside while they're doing their times, I mean, it was just amazing. So I was totally blessed. Now every race after that, it's been like, oh, I know how it's like to be on the other side of the fence, So
Now, if I remember right, that was about 05.
yeah, it was his last race. It was Ricky Carmichael's last race there
Unreal.
in Daytona. Yeah, so that was a special event. And then betting with Michael Jordan and who was this? Charles Oakley on who was going to win with the Haydens. I mean, on the two, everything was just like an epic week. If you ever get a chance to go to Daytona, you got to spend the whole week, because you see flat track, you see road racing, you see motocross, and I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I slept. It was like, let's go.
Yeah.
the town was just lit all week long, and I was just like a kid in a candy store. You know.
So for context, Simcoe, so I was with the Michael Jordan Motorsports team at the time, and we approached one of our sponsors who was Gatorade, and Gatorade has a suite up there in the Daytona Speedway Tower. So they have their own suite up there for all the NASCAR races and stuff. So they let us use their suite for Daytona Bike Week. So, you know, Michael and his guests and our sponsors and everybody else, we were able to put everybody up in the Gatorade suite, which is not a small space. It's a pretty good sized space with catering and beverages and all that stuff. So we got to watch. Well, I was down on the ground most of the time running the race team, but but you could see the whole race from up there. You could watch Supercross from up there, and you just had a bird's eye view of everything. And people don't really understand. You referenced Simcoe, when you come through the tunnel and you start to kind of feel that energy. You know, it still just feels like another racetrack when you're on the ground, right? You know, you're on the ground and there's turn 3 and there's turn 4 and there's the racetrack. And then someone says, yeah, man, it's 3.51 miles. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's at a speedway. It's a pretty big track. But then you go upstairs and look down on the whole thing. And it's like, wow, okay, like this is the size of a city. And you got planes landing at the airport behind you that look like they're landing on the back straight. So literally the back straight is like the size of a runway. And to think that, you know, we're using that as part of our racetrack in the 3.51 mile setup. And it's just, you start to really understand the scope of all of it. And the specialty of the Supercross there is that it's literally the only race in the entire Supercross circuit, right? The entire Supercross series where they have a separate independent builder, which is Ricky Carmichael. And it's not part of the Feld Motorsports, which used to be Live Nation tour. So it's not promoted by Live Nation. It's not, you know, produced by Live Nation, all these other things. They come to, or Feld rather, they come down and a bunch of those guys are there. But this is a Daytona International Speedway promoted, operated, built racetrack, and they bring Ricky Carmichael in every year to specially build this thing. And Ronnie, I don't know if you've kept up on this racetrack, but it's supposed to be brutal this year with a lot of really deep, sandy ruts. And the cool thing about Daytona every year is they bring in a whole bunch of different types of dirt and sand and stuff so that you literally have all these different varied conditions in one racetrack. And it's usually one of the most brutal Supercrosses of the entire series. And of course, it's built by Dirtworks, which builds all the other tracks, but it's designed and and sort of, you know, built by quote unquote, Ricky Carmichael. And as you mentioned, the 25th anniversary of Ricky Carmichael winning one of his championships.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can put it in the middle of it. They can put gators in it. I don't care what they do, but my boy Eli Tomac's still going to fly over everything.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? So Supercross points after 5 rounds, right? So they've had 5 rounds already this year. And after 5 rounds, Hunter Lawrence on the Honda is leading the points. Ken Roczen is second, only 5 points back. 3 points back from him is Eli Tomac on his brand new team. He's riding that brand new KTM, and he's had some really good results. In fact, he was the leader until the last race when he crashed and totally tweaked the frame on that. And then Cooper Webb, who's defending the number 1 plate, is 4th in points. And then Chase Sexton on the Kawasaki is 5th in points. And if we look back at the history of the 450 Supercross winners at Daytona, it was Ken Roczen on the Suzuki last year, right? And then Jet Lawrence in 2024. And Ron, who was the 2020 through 2023 winner down there?
Oh, it would have to be Eli Tomac.
It's going to be Eli Tomac.
Yeah.
On a Yamaha. But the way it looks so far, and you're the Supercross guy, the way it looks so far is that KTM and Eli Tomac is virtually unbeatable if he stays on it.
All right. So have you guys have probably seen Ford versus Ferrari. When they're about ready to collapse it all, and he's like, we got Lorenzo right where we want him, and they're like, explain. He said on the back stretch, we were 219 miles an hour. We got him right where we want him. Eli Tomac went down, rung his bell, tweaked his bike midway through the race. They're like, Eli Tomac's 2 seconds faster than everybody on the track. Yes, I don't
2
care
seconds.
If won or lost. 2
That's
seconds
insane.
faster.
2 seconds.
It's like
Faster. 2 seconds faster than the fastest guys on the entire planet.
That's it right there.
Who don't have a tweaked bent frame.
Yep.
I mean, the guy's unreal.
Yeah,
he's on another level right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know,
he's in his zone.
Yeah, he's in the zone. That's exactly what it is. You know,
yeah.
So to be able to come after that with that adversity and to be able to pick up, straighten it all out in your head and drive a bike that is tweaked and still be 2 seconds faster than everybody, dude is a beast, man.
Come on.
Beast mode, you know?
Come on. But you can't rule out Hunter Lawrence, who's basically been second. So whoever was the fastest guy every week so far, whether it was, you know, Roxon or Tomac or Webb or whatever, Hunter Lawrence was right there, which is why he's still leading the points with 106 points. He's 5 points better than anybody else in the field right now. He was like second at the Triple Crown, second, right? And he's and then when someone is pushing maybe a little bit too hard and, you know, and gets tweaked, he was right there to capitalize. So you can't really count out Hunter Lawrence, and maybe he's just getting up to speed this year on the Honda. And then, like we said, you know, Cooper Webb, the defending, you know, #1 plate, he's just kind of hanging out. I mean, he looks really comfortable. He doesn't look like he's struggling. And then Ken Roczen on the Suzuki is just looks, well, he had issues in the Triple Crown, right? So, so that he went back in points a little bit there. But I mean, really, the top 4 guys, if we're looking at Lawrence, who's the leader in points, Ken Roczen, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb. In my opinion, any given weekend now, it's a toss-up. And they're already building the track and setting up for Seattle this weekend, which may play into the hands of some of these guys. And you know, is Ken Roczen's, you know, hand wrist really hurt enough for him to push 100%? Is Tomac hurt enough to not push all the way through? So, and then let's look at the 250 class, Ron. I mean, I think everybody expected Hayden Deegan to be strong, but holy cow, he's not just strong this year. He's dominant. I mean, he's just laying it out there.
Before we go to the 250 class, I have one word for the 450, and it's legacy. You have Eli Tomac and you have Ken Roczen. They are fighting for legacy right now. I don't care about points. I don't think the championship. Yes, they all race for championships, but this is legacy. These dudes are on their way out, and they are setting new bars. They're setting the bar a little higher, a little higher. I absolutely love it. I look forward. I work all day long, and Saturday I'm like, don't talk to me. We're watching Supercross. You know, it's like,
man.
Food, get everything prepared. Don't ask me questions during the middle of the race. You know, so yeah. So for me, it's legacy, and that's what makes it so fun to see these guys. I mean, obviously, I love Suzuki's, but I'm rooting for Eli Tomac to get that 3rd Supercross thing. It just goes with this number. The world will be right. You know, everything will be good. You know, but yeah,
right.
Great. You know.
Yeah, 250. Yeah, the 250 Supercross season this year. Again, I mean, Hayden Deegan was just phenomenal last year, but I think people thought it was going to be a little bit more of a race this year. But Hayden is, I mean, he's not just winning; he is completely dominating. It just, you know, whole shot, leads every lap, finishes on top of the podium. He has 118 points, and Mosman, who's in second on basically almost an identical Yamaha, is 91 points. I mean, that's I didn't do the math, but it's a lot, right? It's at least 18, 9, 27 points, you know, already, and we're only done 5 rounds. DiFrancesco on the Husqvarna is 3rd in points. So good show for Husky this year. Max Anstey has shown some flares and getting on the podium. And then Cameron McAdoo, also on a Kawasaki, has been pretty stinking good this year. If we go back and look at Daytona winners last year, it was RJ Hampshire, which on a Husqvarna, which hasn't done much this year. Tom Vialli, Seth Hammaker, Chance Hymas, Maximus Volland. Pretty much no shows this year, right? Have you seen anything from those guys this year that's going to show that they might?
Kitchen is the one that's going to bring the heat, is what I believe. It's the same thing. He came from 16th or 13th to second, and it was kind of downplayed, but the dude was rocking. The dude was reeling him in, even though Hayden was running about 75%. He didn't have to race fast. The other kid was racing for, I'm going to catch him, and he was on there. But for me, this is a sandbag year for the Deegan. I'm just going to say it the way it is. He was overseas competing with Eli, and he was leading and beating those guys, and then nerves got to him. But he's fast enough to be competitive in the 450, and that's just true. This is just prolonging, his 250 career, which is great. He's a young kid, but talent-wise, he's basically an A rider riding in a B class.
Yeah. And I agree with the comment about Kitchens. He's not in the top 5, but it's because he's crashed a couple times and finished back, but he's been on the podium. He's been running, he hasn't challenged Deegan for the lead, but he's challenged for second place in almost every race so far. So Kitchens for sure is has to be a contender for the remainder of the year to see if he can kind of work his way back up through the field there.
Yep.
Yeah. So Ronnie, let's talk a little bit about your involvement with motocross where you're at. You're located kind of right in between Champaign, Illinois, where University of Illinois is, and Indianapolis. You're right on the border of Indiana and Illinois. And for as long as I've known you, you've been really a youth mentor in several different ways. You had a church building where you're teaching, karate, taekwondo, martial arts. You have another ministry you're working with where you're teaching kids how to ride motocross bikes. You're back and forth between Supercross rounds with some cool stuff that you've got going on with Supercross. Tell us a little bit about, where did this passion for working with kids start for you, and where is it now, and how does it involve motorcycles? And if somebody lives in that area, how can they connect with you in some way and be part of what it is you're doing with these kids?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we have enough time to really answer that, but I'm going to give you the high level. That's a good question.
High level.
The first is, I got to say the Lord. What I love about motocross, you see a lot of these young kids and a lot of the guys giving up to the man upstairs, so there's some influences, and I'm going to show you those influences go all the way to the top. And I think it's pretty cool. But basically my dad was into racing. My dad raced flat track. He raced motocross. He raced road racing. And a shout out to the 200. My dad had an article on him. He was 57 years old and raced the Daytona 200 in the 350 class. And the article is old, but still getting it, So that's my bucket list, man. If I could get out on that track, and ride, my dad did it at age 57.
Hey, we can make that happen in the fall. We've got the Team Hammer riding school every fall.
Let's go. I'm in. Count me in, man.
Done.
But what I'm doing here, if you notice my shirt, I'm trying to represent the different things. The FCA MX is one of the programs that I'm in now. And there's 12 camps all over the United States. And they do a week-long camp. They get pro riders. They share their faith. And then they practice riding. And it's the best ministry and motocross. And you put it together, and it's putting the cross in motocross. That's what it's all about. And if you get a chance to go to the Supercross, there's a thing. You got to go and pre-register, but it's free. And it's the MVP thing. You go in at fcamx.org. And you go in and see the track walk. And most people do not know there's a chapel service before every race. Now I'm going to say that again. There is a chapel service before every race. There's the riders meeting, and the chaplain comes in and he gives a word. It's about 10-minute word, and all of the biggest riders, the biggest names, the mechanics, the parents, the kids, the racers, they're all there listening to this chapel service. When it says in Jesus' name, amen, the lights turn on, and that's when the cameras start. And I'm just like, that is so rad that the foundation is a good foundation that they're putting into these riders, because typically Sunday everybody's riding, so the church has to go to the track, and so with that, we get to go in, we get to see the event.
And real quick, Ron, is that with MRO? Is that Motor Racing Outreach that does that, or is that a different ministry?
FCA. So
FCA, okay. Gotcha.
The FCA is the FCA MX, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes MX program.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, there's a lot of side ministries and different things, but Danita Polvoni started this program. There's another guy that started it, from the beginning down there in Louisville, Kentucky. But her husband, Jimmy Polvoni, ex-racer, they promote and go all over the United States doing this stuff. And I just think it's as rad as all get out.
Love it.
And then I have the opportunity to go to Guatemala every year for a camp. And we go and we basically have about 50 riders, kids that, we ride, do a camp with, and we basically redo a camp that we do in the United States. We do it in Guatemala, and it is epic riding, fun, the kids. And then we do about 3 days of mission work of building a house, building, just different things of work. And it's one of the best experiences. I can't say it. If you want to have an epic ride, and you see those one things where people out riding in the desert, they have all these different things, they're doing some cool stuff. This is that and beyond, because you're actually helping other people. You get a ride, you get to do what you love to do, but then you're serving people. And when you combine those two things, man, it's just epic. You meet people like Cowboy Kenny. He's gone on the trip 2 times. So we've become friends. You got several different pro racers that are either retired or they still race, and they do some really cool stuff. And I mean, it's just awesome to be a part of it. And I'm an amateur rider. I look at these guys and I want to be, like them, in your mind, you always think, oh, I can do that. But you get out there, it's a whole nother world. So I have so much respect for the racers and riders, but when they come and they do, and they serve with the kids, that's one of the most powerful thing of any professional athlete. They can say, I want to give, by the grace of God, I won this race. I thank God for that. And then it goes out and it spreads. That's just cool as all get out, and I love that.
I love that. Can you give everybody, and maybe Simcoe can put this in the comments afterwards, but can you give everybody a couple websites where they can go to get more information about that stuff?
For sure.
Actually, text them to me, Ron, and I'll add them into the podcast.
Okay. I sure will. FCA MX though, just because I don't think I do 2 things at once, but FCAMX.org. It has all of it on there, all the camp dates, all the race dates, all of the things for kids to do, and then at every local track, there's always ministries out there, and some people are like, man, I don't know how to get my kid involved, man, just show up.
And if people wanted to connect with you at this year's event, you're going to be at the Indianapolis Supercross, which is the weekend after Daytona. So that makes it 7 + 7, 14, somewhere around March 14th.
I think I got to look. I think it's closer than that. I think it's on the 7th. I have to look at the date. But yes, I'm going to be at Indy Supercross whenever it is. I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning for the.
Yeah, that's right. It's the same. That's right. Indianapolis Supercross is the same weekend. The same weekend as the 200. And
then the end of it is the Supercross at the end of that week for Daytona. So that's how it's split. So
So Daytona Supercross is like the 27th, 28th of February. 28th of February, and then And then the next weekend is March 7, which is the Daytona 200 and the Indy Supercross.
Yes.
Right?
Now we're cooking with Chris.
Yeah. And so that's where you guys will be. And just a couple things before we get to Daytona. Obviously, Supercross is in Seattle this weekend at Lumen Field on 2/14. And then next weekend at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. So that'll be round 7. And then Daytona is round 8. So the Daytona Supercross, like we said, from their press release, it says the Daytona Supercross track promises to be brutal, as Ricky Carmichael's 2026 layout is rumored to feature deep sand, long rhythm sections, and a punishing, in quotation marks, a punishing transition that'll test even the most seasoned Supercross veterans. Daytona is always a brutal course and unique to all of the other racetracks because it's designed by Ricky Carmichael. So that's what's coming up. And again, right now, Ken Roxon, Cooper Webb, this year's point standings, Hunter Lawrence, Ken Roxon, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, Chase Sexton. Last year's results had Ken Roxon winning, Cooper Webb second, Plessinger, Cooper, and Sexton. But behind that, 2004, the winner was Jet Lawrence, and then 4 straight wins for Eli Tomac. So you can't count Tomac out, especially this year on that Red Bull KTM, which it just seems like those guys just really got a combination that's working between them and the tires they're using. That thing just is hooked up.
It's dialed in. Hey, Sean's having a problem hearing everybody, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in the studio so he can hear everybody. So that way,
sounds great.
Sean can hear. I tried everything on my end; it shows everything's working. So I hope Pat and Alan can hear us. Anyway, yeah, dude, Ron, absolutely amazing, man. I think the Supercross, it's going to be a hard battle. It really is, because it's going to be a unique track, and when Ricky makes them, it'll make them easy for anybody. So.
Nope. And that's half the fun of not knowing who's going to win. Right now the 250s, you're kind of like, yeah, there's 80% chance we know who's going to win. On the 450s, you do not. It's a toss up.
It's a toss up. And what I like this year is it seems like everyone's really being a gentleman about it. I mean, as hard of racing as it is, I haven't seen anybody really like cutting off a front wheel or anything. Right. I feel like they're doing it the right way, and literally the cream of the crop is going to rise to the top. I mean, let's face it. Everybody pushing that hard up front, they're making mistakes on their own. So and everybody's made the mistakes so far this year, and the guys that are just killing it are legit killing it. So man, I can't wait. I mean, what a great Supercross season.
Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you, Ron. We appreciate having you on the show tonight for all things Supercross. I'll be in touch, my man. Hope your weekend is as proper mega as you are, and yeah, let's go.
I'm saying, let's go.
Man.
Thank you,
my man.
Thanks, Ronnie. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. All right, so man, that was great. Learning all about Supercross. I try to keep up with it as much as I can anyway, right? Sometimes I don't always get to watch it with working full time and podcast full time and a wife and a kid and dogs and chasing everybody around. I'm sure probably Sean can contest to that, and Pat and other people too as well, because it gets crazy sometimes. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, on CVN we do. I've every week I do a Supercross recap, so I try to stay on top of what's happening in road racing with MotoGP and World Superbike, Australian Superbike, and of course Moto America, which is why we've got Sean Bice on the show today. But Supercross, I used to work with all the people that produce and promote Supercross when I was at Live Nation / Clear Channel / SFX / Pace Motorsports Group. We changed names 4 years in a row, I think, but now it's at Feld Motorsports Group. So I just love those guys. It's an amazing sport, and the last job I was supposed to have with those guys, I was actually going to move from road racing into the motocross / off-road world and work with some of their international stuff. And then Kenny Feld and all those guys just cut a bunch of budget, and that cut a bunch of us out of being able to do that. But on CVN, on Cycle Vision Network, every week I do a Supercross recap show. So it's just something, usually 20-30 minutes that says, hey, here's what happened, here are the points. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, here's what's going on. So if you missed the race, you can always tune into Exhaust Noise on CVN and at least catch the highlights. So.
There you go, CVN. Let's go, right? Yeah. So moving on, we're going to move to the Daytona short track side of things, which last year I got to hang out with my boy Sammy Halbert, which was absolutely a dream come true for me. If you guys happen to not catch that episode, what are you guys doing? Go back and I forget what episode it is. Just go search. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm super pumped for the flat track. It was my first time ever being at a flat track race, and I'm telling you, I was standing at that fence and I was just losing my mind. It was absolutely proper mega, as I always say. So
Short track is really cool, and and Alan will attest when we put Alan in. But
he's in right now.
Yeah. So the short track is really cool. It's just nonstop, right? Zip, going in circles, right? Nonstop going left. And there really isn't any room to rest. And it differs dramatically from like the Indy Mile, the Springfield Mile, and the big mile tracks that are really, really fast. But they bring their own level of hectic. But at least you can take a breath in the middle of the, like the back straight or the front straight. You get a little bit of a rest in between, and the corners are so long, you can actually breathe a little bit between corners. So you get pitched in, you get the thing set, right? You take a breath, you get back on the gas, you get on the back straightaway, you get into a tuck, you can take 1 or 2 breaths before you get back into turn 3 again. So like there's at least a little bit of a break there. But the speed is ridiculous, right? On these little short tracks, man, there is just nowhere to rest. It's because the Olympics are on now, right? The Olympics are almost like watching the little short track speed skating. It's just super fast. It's like they're zipping around on a basketball court, right? It's just around, and it's just nonstop, bumping and grinding and zipping and trying to cut underneath. And man, it just gets super exciting. And the cool thing about Daytona is they do it 2 nights in a row. So Thursday and Friday night at Daytona, you can, and it's right there outside Speedway walls. It's right outside NASCAR turn 1, turn 2. They've got their own Speedway down there. You can get in the grandstands. You can walk around through the pits. They're going to have the BTR, the Build Train Race Girls down there. And so that's going to be pretty cool. But man, it's what a legendary track. And Sean Bice was around when we used to race the flat tracks over at Municipal Stadium. That was the half mile, right, Sean?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy the way it is now compared to then,
I mean, the short track is cool. It fits into that space, right? And it allows the paddock to be the way that it is. And there aren't really a lot of short tracks on that AFT circuit. But man, just the history of Daytona over at Municipal Stadium, that was pretty cool. I don't know if you remember. Remember they used to have a legend car race, and they would have celebrities race the legend cars.
Yes.
So the Superbike guys would go from running at the Speedway all day at 200 not 200, but we'll call it 180 miles an hour on the 750s back then, and then everybody would go over to the flat track and jump in these legend cars and go around in the legend cars all night. I mean, it was one of the craziest nights of the year. And I had a chance to run in one of those legend cars. I made it into one of the quarterfinals or something. I didn't make it out of whatever the final qualifying thing was. I didn't make it out of that one to get it to the main. But man, what a blast those things are!
Yeah, those are cool. Those were the ones that had the FJ 1100 engines, or were they? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
1200
and
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and like now, I think they have like Hayabusa motors in them or something.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Talk about hectic. Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah, right.
Sign me up. Let's go. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing I wouldn't want to be signed up for is that short track now, though. My gosh, that's unbelievable how fast they go around that thing and all the dust. And, it's crazy what they do.
It is so hectic, isn't it?
It is. It is very hectic. Yeah.
It is so hectic.
I held my breath the entire race. I don't think I took a breath one time. It's going like this, turning my head because the dirt was coming and go right back to it. It was absolutely amazing. So Alan, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So Alan, so I wanted to have Alan Matlock on and because Alan is famous Alan goes to every motorcycle event possible. I see him at Blackhawk Farms Raceway when we're doing, ASRA regional races. Of course, he's at the Moto America races at Road America. I took him down to Daytona a couple of years ago and for Bike Week down there. We went to the flat track and did all the fun stuff. But you'll find him at the Springfield Mile. You'll find him at the DeCoin Half Mile. You'll find him at all these flat tracks, and you'll find him at Byron Speedway for the drag races and stuff. He's just He's a really he's just a great enthusiast of motorcycle racing, but he's well embedded in the flat track side of things in addition to the road race. And I thought it'd be a perfect transition to go from from our flat track conversation into road racing. So welcome to the show, Alan. We appreciate you being here, man. Talk a little bit about how the flat track season ended last year and what we can look forward to at Daytona short track this year. What are some of the things we're going to see, and what should we be looking forward to?
Well, the way I put it, the way I look at it is that last year it was a battle between Dallas Daniels and Briar Ballman. And some things happened at the Springfield Mile that kind of took Briar out of contention for the championship. And I sit there and I think about it, and I remember one of my favorite movies is Tombstone, and it kind of makes me think about the time when Kurt Russell, he's playing Wyatt Earp. He's sitting there, and the guys are all pinned in, and they're shooting and everything going on, and Wyatt just gets up and he just says no, and he just starts going out to the river, and he just starts shooting and shooting and shooting because it's all about redemption. It's all about revenge. And that is how I see the 2026 flat track season. Okay. It's all about revenge. It's all about these guys are going to be going out there. There's going to be no holds barred. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody's going to do anything dirty and take anybody out or anything like that. But I think the level of competition this year is just going to be off the chain.
Yeah. And for those that haven't been to a short track, what are or for anyone that hasn't been to a road race, to a flat track rather, and they've only gone to road races or drag races or something, what makes flat track so different? Like what draws you to flat track? Because you're at a lot of flat tracks here in the Midwest region. What draws you to flat track, and what should people be looking forward to when they visit the short track at Daytona?
When they visit the short track at Daytona, they're going to be looking at a lot of different things. So there's a lot of new storylines, if you want to, look at it that way. The singles class, they've got some guys coming in. Cage Tadman, he's riding for Turner Honda this year. He used to ride for First Impressions last year. He won a few short track races in California last year, but now he's doing the whole season, and he's got, a solid backing behind him with, not to say that he didn't have it before, but he's got, Mike Turner, who runs that Honda operation. And he's got some great guys helping him. Last year, he had guys like Kenny Coolbeth, in their corner, and some other guys helping kind of, bring their level of excitement and their level of history on that team. And also, they've got guys like Jack Brooks. He's out of he's going to be riding for First Impressions, and First Impressions just picked up Chase Sathoff, who used to ride for Rick Ware's racing team last year in the 250 or in the 450 class, the single class. So he's moved over, and so again, there's just a lot of these guys are just lining themselves up in the singles class to just bring the heat. And one thing that I think is really cool, and I have to give him props because he's my guy. Jared Mees is going to be working as a consultant with First Impressions race team this year. And you talk about a guy, wow. See, I'm getting excited because I love MotoGP. I love road racing, but flat track is like my family now. And I love all of those guys out there. And Jared Mees is going to bring a level of excitement, a level of experience to these newer riders. And, I also work with Jared Mees and Nicole Mees for Mees Promotions that run the Lima race, and they also run, the Springfield Mile. So I'm so excited about that. I'm just super pumped about that. And like I said, if you've never been to a short track race, Daytona short track is probably the bare knuckle boxing race of the season because everybody's coming in to establish themselves at the beginning of the season. They're not just trying to survive the race. They're just trying to go down there and say, here I am. I'm ready to fight. This is my program. What do you guys got for me?
be able to set the tone, right? And
Exactly.
and just I'm looking back at the 2024 results for Daytona. Jared Mees was in the top 5 both night 1 and night 2 on the Indian. So
Yes,
he was
sir.
able to get into the top 5 in 2024. So this isn't a guy who's been, retired for a long time. This isn't a guy who's like washed up and trying to come back. This is a guy who's finished in the top 5 at the short track at Daytona 2 nights in a row, right? And now he's coming back and working with some new young riders with a great team, and bring some real world experience. And let's be honest, Jared Mees is going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point in time because of his finishes and championships and everything else. And as you mentioned, last year, 2025 AFT Daytona short track, Dallas Daniels with 2 wins down there, right?
Yes, sir.
Briar Bauman on, and let's mention the fact that Dallas Daniels is on the Yamaha MT-07, right? Which
Yes,
is
sir.
which is one of the platforms, Sean, that we use at the road race course. Briar
Right.
Bauman is on the Harley Davidson XG 750R, which is not something we see at the road race course. But third place last year was Dan Bromley, who's on the Suzuki GSX-8, which is the new Suzuki Twins platform that's done really well in Twins Cup in road racing. And then you have Brandon Robinson on the Harley Davidson, Brandon Price on the other Yamaha MT-07. And then, night 2 is basically the same thing. You had Daniels, who swept both nights on the short track, Briar Bauman, who finished runner-up both nights, and Daniels, who, if I remember right, last year, Alan, it was Daniels who really just kind of sat on Bauman's back wheel until like the last couple laps, and then made a last minute move to take the win. And I think both nights it was a photo finish, wasn't it?
Pretty much. But as far as Dallas Daniels is concerned, would you expect anything less from the first Nikki Hayden, award winner,
Horizon
Dallas
Award
Daniels,
winner? Yeah,
Horizon Award winner. Yes.
And Sean can speak to this. Dallas Daniels, the first AMA Horizon winner who won it in both the road race and flat track categories, and the only rider to do that in the history of it, and then which just happened again, right, Sean?
That's
we're
right.
In just a couple of weeks, we're gonna crown the decision was made last fall at the ASRA Race of Champions, but we're gonna crown another rider who did the exact same thing last year. If you want to talk to that a little bit, Sean.
Yeah, Bodie Page. So, it's funny at COTA when we had our first round, I said to him, hey, you're racing in a bunch of stuff here in America. Are you going to move to America? And he goes, not on your life, mate. And I'm like, typical Australian, I guess. But at any rate, yeah, he's the one that did it. And it was crazy. And for Dallas, and it's awesome because, he knows Dallas and that family pretty well. So it's kind of a nice continuity there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do we know what he's going to be racing on this year, Sean?
So not for road racing. I think he's going to be Twins Cup. I'm pretty sure it's Twins Cup. We still haven't got a final list yet. We've gotten closer to knowing what's going on with the 200, but I think he's going to be Twins Cup, and I think he's going to be racing in. Let me see if I can find it.
Sure.
Their team hasn't been announced yet, Kenny, and once you find out who the team is he's going to be on, you'll understand why I can't say anything. But he will be in Twins Cup, yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Alan, anything else we should be looking forward to as we get closer to the Daytona opener with Daytona short track?
I can't go without mentioning the fact that Cody Kopp is back in flat track racing.
Oh yeah,
he's riding for Lattice, and he's riding a Harley. And again, this is all about, in my opinion, this is going to be the redemption year. He went off and did great things, in my opinion, in Moto America with Kenny Roberts' team, but now he's back in flat track. He's doing Pro Twins, and he's going to bring it. I have no doubt he's going to bring it. His dad, Joe Kopp, is going to be right there with him, pushing him. And he's got a lot to prove, and he's one of my guys. I love them all. Again, I can't go without saying that enough. I love all of those guys. Brad Baker, everybody has been so cool with me, because I started working with the Illinois Motorcycle Dealer Association at Springfield, and that was like 11 years ago. And again, they were just so cool and so nice to me. And so again, I have to say this. All of those guys that come through the gate, Dalton, Chad Coase, Davis Fisher, Brandon Robinson, the Bauman boys. I mean, they've all been so cool. But Cody is going to bring it. I think he's going to give Dallas and don't count out Breyer. And don't, especially at Daytona, don't count out the fact that who I lovingly refer to as slamming Sammy Halbert. He's going to be there. They're all going to be down there ready to represent and just put on a great show.
Yeah, and maybe you could speak to some of the favorites. Kind of doing some research. Obviously, Dallas Daniels, Brandon Robinson, Breyer Bauman, Sammy Halbert. Jared Mees isn't racing any longer, but obviously he's going to have some influence over that new team. David Fisher. Maybe somebody to look at. Trevor Bruner on maybe on the KTM. Brandon Price, Max Whale. There's a good handful of kids, and as you mentioned, there's absolutely no reason why Kopp can't be part of that main event and challenge for the win. If any, a lot of people look at the influence of flat track prior to road racing. Sean, maybe you have an idea of how road racing may have helped Cody Kopp as he goes back to flat track.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with Cody Kopp on that bike, he was just too big for it. And they tried to do a bunch of stuff. They changed a couple of things for this rules on the seat to get him a little bit more comfortable. I mean, when he first went out there, he was training. He was training on a TZ250, and he was like so impressed with how low to the ground the thing was. But the Talent Cup bike's a little different than that. So, I mean, I think it's going to help him. I mean, certainly. I mean, the guy's got incredible balance anyway. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, those Talent Cup bikes go pretty fast, but they're a little down on power. So I think he's going to have a little bit more power back on the dirt again. But for him, it's anything he can get for seat time at this point in his life is going to be great. I actually thought he was possibly going to race in Europe this year, road race, but. It turned out that wasn't the case. So, and Kensei Matsudaira, Mini Cup rider and really good rider, is kind of replaced Cody on that Roberts team. So, that's going to be cool to see. Yeah.
How cool, and we can talk about this obviously when we get back into road racing, but because Kenny Roberts was so influential in flat track as well, and Kopp, he helps with that transition story for sure. I mean, how cool is it to see the factory Yamaha Kenny Roberts colors back in the paddock? Not only in road racing, but we saw it a couple times in the flat track. I mean, just how cool is that Kenny Roberts is walking around the paddock. Yeah. I mean, none of us have seen that since Pat Gonzalez in the 1970s and early 80s, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing Kenny and also Kenny's son. I mean, Kenny Jr. being there too, the two of them being so involved in it. And they both now live in Alabama, which is kind of interesting. They really have embraced the Southern lifestyle, as Kenny Jr. likes to put it. But it's very cool. And that was obviously his kind of personal favor to Wayne Rainey, who he still calls his best rider ever. He got involved in it, and Arnie Wick's involvement is incredible. I mean, that team's great that they're involved with us. They're still going to be this year.
Yeah.
So cool.
Thanks for that transition.
Yeah.
Alan, anything else to wrap up our Daytona flat track conversations?
Again, talking about the history of flat track, I was at Springfield last year to witness Trent Lowe winning on a Honda on the Springfield Mile.
Oh, wow.
You talking about emotional. That was so cool. So a huge shout out to Trent. He's going to be, again, taking steps forward in their program to push that Honda even further and be more, put more wins under their belt. Shout out again to Jack Brooks. Don't forget to go down there and check out Corey Texter's Road to AFT program. I believe his program is starting on Wednesday. I could be wrong on that, but I know it's before the AFT flat track on Thursday. But Corey Texer, I wanted to give a shout out to him and his program. And watch out for wild cards. Watch out for Henry Wiles. He may show up. Watch out for, he may show up. Who knows? But Jeffrey Carver, the Wizard. It's going to be an exciting year in flat track to me. I can't wait for the season to start. And again, for any of my flat track family that I missed, please know that I love you and I will see you at the races.
Absolutely. I think that, speaking of Cody Kopp real quick, his year in the Talent Cup, obviously didn't go his way. Like Sean said, he's just too big for the bike. Learned a lot on the road racing side. Happy to see him back in flat track where his heart is, right? I think he's coming with a mission. And I know my boy Sammy, because I talked to him not too long ago, he's coming with a mission to himself. So it's going to be no holds bar in the flat track at the short track, and I cannot wait to be part of it. So everybody that's coming to the 200, make sure you go to the flat track race because it's
get those flat track tickets.
Amazing.
Yep.
Yes.
And again, all those tickets are available obviously at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. You can get your road race tickets there, Supercross tickets, flat track tickets. Don't forget about the RV and infield camping. All of that is there, and it's a perfect transition. Alan, thank you so much for your time, brother. We appreciate you jumping out of work and jumping on a call. I know that was a tight squeeze for you, and man, we look forward to seeing you a little bit later on at a racetrack here in the Midwest. So thanks for hanging out with us, Alan.
Hey, I love you guys, and don't stop what you're doing.
Thanks,
Alan, Alan, real quick, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry. This is a wild off the wall question. Where are you from?
I am from Rockford, Illinois.
Okay, I could tell you're Midwest. You sounded a little like my area, Northern New York, but yeah, I can tell where you're from. You're one of my people for sure. So
he's up here by me, Sean. So our local racetrack is Road America and Blackhawk Farms Raceway.
Yes,
Chicagoland Speedway, and of course we do some track days and stuff at Audubon, which is in Joliet as well. So yeah.
Oh,
Dallas Daniels stomping ground too, of course.
It is.
I'm sorry.
100%.
One more thing I'd like to add: if you guys ever get a chance, check out the Peoria TT.
Oh yeah,
100%.
What a great race! And Alan, a little bit of a historian with flat track and these obscure brothers from Owensboro, Kentucky. When was the last time a Honda won in Springfield? Was that the infamous number 69 of Nicky Hayden?
At Springfield for the short track, yes.
Yeah, but not the mile. He didn't win the mile, right?
He didn't win the mile. And see, now you're going down a road that you're really going to get me emotional because one of my dreams when I started working with the IMDA, because I worked at the gate where the racers come through the infield, one of my dreams was to see Nicky pull up in a van with his family to get that Grand Slam, because that was the last race that he needed to do is a mile track, is a mile win. And I thought for sure one day I would see Nicky pull through that gate. But again, much love and respect to the Hayden family. I see Tommy all the time at the flat track races. They're great people, and see, now you got me going down that road. So
I know. Sorry.
I'm gonna shut up.
And if anybody missed it, Corey Alexander and James Rispoli also do a podcast called
Pipe Dreams.
Called Pipe Dreams. And they had Roger Hayden on there, and I that was one of the best interviews I've ever seen. One of the best motorcycle podcasts I've ever seen. And in my opinion, he was just, Roger was so open and vulnerable with all of his conversations about, about his career and his brothers and all kinds of other stuff. If you didn't catch that, you should search for that and go watch it. It's he talks about flat track and road race and traveling around with the family in Earl's truck and all that. And I can verify a lot of that stuff. I was racing with Wira when those guys were on little 125s, and I was with Dunlop as the two older brothers were with factory teams, and Roger was just riding for Earl's Racing, and he was coming up on a Gixxer 750 in the 750 Super Sport class, and it was just a quick story. Nicky had his factory Honda tire deal, and Tommy had his factory Kawasaki tire deal, and the tires would come back to the Dunlop truck when I worked for Dunlop, and they would, they just write Hayden on the side. They wouldn't write Tommy or Nicky or numbers. They would just write Hayden on the tire. So those tires would circle back through. Now, some of those tires were pretty shredded. Some of them had like a 1-lap, 2-lap scrub on them. And then Earl Hayden, father of all three brothers, would come pick up the tires for Hayden. And surprisingly enough, they would end up on Roger's Super Sport 750 Super Sport bike, right? So they would kind of cycle through. Now, all of that said, Jimmy Allen from Dunlop knew that was happening. It was an agreed upon scenario. But it was just funny that there was an allocation happening for the two older brothers from Dunlop that just happened to also favor Roger. And as Roger was coming up through, everybody was saying, oh yeah, our younger brother, he's way faster than both of us. Like, they set him up for success before he even started road racing the big bike. So it's just such a cool story. And
that was Hypercycle, wasn't it, Kenny?
He was with Hypercycle. That was his first big ride, but he rode a Privateer 750 before Hypercycle even.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Second chance auto.
Sure.
Yes, exactly. Now they've got a third chance.
Now they got a third chance. If you don't make it on the first and second, there's always a third.
There's always a third.
Hey, Earl was always wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, good for him. Miss him. Rest in peace. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Alan, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you, man. We'll see you again soon, bro.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. So that's a good transition. Why don't we, before we start talking about road racing, dive into the Daytona 200 real quick? I want to promote the Moto America Live Plus show, at which, Sean, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but every race class, exclusive, behind the scenes footage, all kinds of other stuff, including some of the podcasts that you did with Paul Carruthers. You're all still on there. But early bird pricing is available for the Moto America Live Plus show. You can get on now. It's like $89.99 now or something. It's like right around $90 now. And then once the early bird special expires, it's like $110 or something for the season. But you can do all that by going to Moto America Live and just hit the Live Plus link, and you can subscribe to that. And that's where you're going to get your best Daytona 200 behind the scenes footage, unless it's coming from Cycle Vision Network or Pin the Gas podcast, because we're going to be there doing our own shows too. But and maybe this is a good place to announce the fact that Simcoe and I are actually going to do a 30-minute show at the end of each day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going to be live on Moto America Live Plus at the end of each day to kind of wrap up what happened today and look forward to the next day. So this will be the first time that we have a chance to interact with the Moto America Live Plus production crew and everything else. And so Sean, you're going to be down there. Pat Gonzalez, you're going to be in Daytona Beach, and actually Pat's going to kick off the week early with the Daytona 200 Monument Ceremony, which happens on Wednesday morning before everything else gets going. Pat, tell us a little bit about the history of the Daytona 200 Monument. And what are some of the things that you guys have been doing down there, and what is it that we commemorate every year at the monument?
Well, Kenny, great to be on with you guys. Dick and Beth Clanfoot started the monument over 20 years ago. Dick, who won 3 times on the beach, had this idea as the races had moved to the Speedway for decades. They wanted to remember the great riders that won those races on the beach going back to 1937. So when you go there, and it's just on the beach side of the Daytona Hilton, the main monument part has all of the riders who won from 1937 till 1960, including Dick Clanford, who won 3 times. So that was the thrust, how it all began. But it's really taken on a life of its own, Kenny, because not only are all of the Daytona 200 champions from the Speedway over the years, most of them have got a plaque. There's still some additional plaques to go on, but they're also flat track racers, motocross riders, people that have been involved in motorcycling over the years. So it really embraces the entire motorcycle racing community. And it really is a very special place. And we started volunteering with my late announcing partner, Richard Chambers, a number of years ago to host an MC and unveil the plaques each year. And Richard, of course, who sadly passed away last October, just before the fall cycle scene races, he's going to have a plaque that's going to be part of a brand new wall section. In addition to that plaque, we'll be unveiling 11 other plaques that'll go up there at the Daytona 200 monument. It all kicks off 10 o'clock on Wednesday, March the 4th. And there's an open invitation to all motorcyclists to join us for what should be a wonderful day as we remember some great motorcyclists. And for me, of course, it'll be very special. I announced with Richard at the Speedway, both the 200 and then the fall cycle scene races for over 40 decades. And we're going to miss him. And Daytona just will not be the same without my announcing partner. So that's the big event on the Wednesday. And then on the Thursday morning, one of the things that Dick and Beth Clanford also starting was an Over the Hill Gang breakfast that they hold at the Eagles Club on Ridgewood. That's USA 1, just south of Dunlawton. That's early Thursday morning at about 8 o'clock. And you still have lots of time to get over to the Speedway to catch the early practice sessions for those 3 big days coming up. So,
yeah. And if people don't know where the monument is, because there's a lot of people in Daytona, and it's not like there's a giant sign that says Daytona 200 Monument over here behind Bubba Gump Shrimp, right? Explain to people where the monument is and how to find it, and where do you park to attend that.
Well, the Daytona Hilton is the biggest hotel there. You can't miss it. There's a giant public parking lot just on the other side of A1A. And then it's located just south of the big band shell. If you know where the band shell is, it's just south of there. You can't miss it. And
so it's where the concert venue is, and it's literally on the beach. So
exactly.
there's a big brick structure, right? A stone structure, and it has a giant plaque in the middle and a seating area all around. It's really it's set up like a reflection pond almost, except there's no water and a big plaque. And I know that we have a new plaque down there for Richard Chambers this year, but there's already a plaque down there with your face on it, Pat.
Well, a number of years ago, I think Roger Lyle and Richard's wife put that together. Richard and I, as I said, 40 years that we announced together, and the voice of Daytona. But, as I reflect back, Richard and I took over from a legend in Roxy Rockwood, because when I went there as a young announcer in 1974 for my first Daytona 200, Roxy Rockwood was the voice on Daytona and covering all of the races. I think he also would do some of the flat track races as well. So, you always get influenced by those who come before you. So, you'd listen to Roxy and said, I like the way he put that together. So he certainly influenced, I think, both Richard and I. But, it was an honor and a pleasure to announce at the Speedway and the 200. Yeah. And boy, did we see some incredible racing over those 40 decades.
Yeah. And just to that point real quick, I started going to Daytona in 1985 with Roger Lyle and the Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Club as a corner worker, and then later as a racer, and then with Dunlop and all kinds of other stuff. And when you're listening to a voice for a week, if not longer, right? Because we used to go down there in the springtime. It was CCS from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. to the vintage stuff in the middle of the week, then the AMA Pro stuff at the other end of the week. So, we'll call it 10, 11 days at Daytona. The voices and the things that get stuck in your head. And we would always leave there with the very specific pronunciation of Ducati from Pat Gonzalez, and the way that Richard would just run up and down pit road and grab interviews, and just everybody wanted to be interviewed by Richard after their session. But then there was this voice of God coming from the upper echelon of the World Center of Racing tower, which was Pat Gonzalez's voice, but we never saw him. And there's just these pictures of things. And early when I was a racer and I was transitioning to be a commentator with Bob Applegate, the voices that I heard all the time in my head were Bob Applegate and Pat Gonzalez. And so when I started announcing at CCS and WERA races in the Mid-Atlantic region, those were the things that I was patterning myself after, right? It was, how does Pat structure the day, and what does he sound like, and how, because honestly, Pat, you were the benchmark, and Applegate was the benchmark. And so it were those things that I think, because you were the benchmarks, everybody was trying to get to that level and sound and be, so much like you guys. And so it's an amazing opportunity even to be able to follow in the footsteps of somebody like yourself and Richard and Bob Applegate and the other legends, that came, well before me, before us. But you mentioned, just some of the amazing races that you've seen down there. What are the top 3 races that stand out to you, going back to 1974, 75, when you first went down there? What are the top 3 races that you've seen down there?
Oh boy, it's tough to pick out just 3. Those battles throughout the 90s between Russell and Duhamel were some of the most incredible fights. That dash from the chicane to the finish, where they were just side by side. So I think 96 maybe one of the ones.
And both of which are 5-time winners. I mean, the only 2 5-time winners in the history of the Speedway, and it's those two.
Yeah, and I think way back when there was an opportunity for Miguel Duhamel to go and try to break the record at 6. The deal didn't quite come together, but that was unfortunate. And now this year we've got Josh Herron looking to join Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel. That'll be one of the storylines, and I'm not sure if Danny Eslick is going to post an entry for the 200. Probably not. He was with the TOBC team for so many years. But one of the other races that really stands out in my mind was the year that Michael Barnes, who I think was 47 years of age at the time, that was the year that Eslick had a little bit of a problem with one of the law enforcement people in Daytona, was not allowed to start the race. He was probably the pre-race favorite. But here is Michael Barnes, who is an incredible person, incredible rider, at age 47 winning it. And I can remember got pretty emotional doing the call. After he took the checkered flag and he won, he stopped on the infield straightaway, parked the bike, hopped over the fence, was up on the top of the McNology bus. And
that's right.
Boy, that was an incredible moment. So those are certainly a couple. And then more recently, not last year, but prior to that, we had those fights between Brandon Posh and Sean Dillon Kelly, where, I don't know how Kelly has not won a Daytona 200. Boy, they were 2 really, really tough beats, photo finishes a couple of times, including that race in 2021 when Posh just, beat him out. And then Posh came back the following year. I think it was a 4-way fight. He was the 4th rider going into the chicane and somehow managed to draft past everybody and get the back-to-back win. But it has been an absolute honor to be one of the voices. I mentioned Roxy Rockwood, but the other guy that we've got to give a shout out to is Dave Despain. I worked with Dave on the 200 1 year. Dave is an incredible talent, and had a chance to announce with him both some flat track racing and some road racing. But as I said, when I was just getting into it, Roxy Rockwood was the guy. And, now, of course, the Moto America announce team, the audio off the streaming is fed on the PA. And Kenny, you're going to be there to sort of fill in the blanks in between. And boy, all the best. We wish you to carry on the tradition.
Thank you so much. Yeah, some of the Daytona memories that I have as well, going way back to the late 80s, early 90s, the British commentator and journalist Chris Carter used to work with you guys there on the announcing team as well. He has since passed, and he is one of the and he used to have the Chris Carter radio show, which at the end of each race day, you would go over to the local hotel there next to the airport, and he would have guests on all day, or not all day, but all night from the Speedway, and that was broadcast over one of the local Daytona Beach radio stations. So, Sean, this is something we're going to push Moto America for, is to bring back the spirit of the Chris Carter radio show. We already have a restaurant. Simcoe and I actually got a restaurant who wants us to come in and do it. Now we just need everybody to sign off on it and a couple sponsors to get it paid for. But we really want to bring that back, because that was part of the spirit of Speed Week, where everybody can kind of leave the racetrack for the day when we get kicked out, and then go somewhere and bench race and be part of another broadcast there. And then one of the other things that I remember from Daytona was, and this was sort of the battle when we still had Smoke and Joe's on the Honda team and Lucky Strike, Suzuki, and everything else, was the return of Eddie Lawson to the Daytona 200. What were your thoughts on that, Pat, when Eddie Lawson came back?
Yeah, and the other guy who sort of came back in the early 90s there was Freddie Spencer, just before he retired on the
Doug Poland.
On the Ducati.
And Doug Poland too. Didn't they all come back in the same year? Freddie Spencer, Doug Poland, and not
100% sure on that, but to have Eddie there, he of course got his win back in the sort of the mid to late 80s. But it is such an incredible race that, as we said, began with racing on the beach, and the technology moves forward, and we go from that era of running Yamaha TZ 750s to the Superbikes taking over in 85. And one of the things, Sean, I'm absolutely delighted to see happen, and I'm going to go to that dinner on the Saturday night, is the BMW very first Superbike race at Daytona in March of 1976. That monumental battle between Reg Pridmore and Steve McLaughlin, inches apart at the finish. I can remember standing there and watching the race, and I don't think Roxy Rockwood knew who had won. I think they actually went to a photo finish camera to try to figure it out. And they're going to be bringing those two bikes back, along with Pridmore and McLaughlin. And the third rider of that Butler and Smith team, Gary Fisher. Gary, of course, passed away. We had a plaque for him at the monument last year. His daughter is going to be there representing. Right. So tip of the announcer's cap to BMW for bringing back that incredible very first Superbike race. And of course, 1985, we moved to the Superbike class for the 200.
And real quick, before we get too far off the BMW thing, so Pridmore was second in the Superbike race and went on to win the Superbike championship that year on the BMW. So it's sort of a double celebration, right? It's 50 years of Daytona, of BMW winning the Daytona Superbike race, the inaugural race, but also Pridmore winning the inaugural championship in that class. And how just looking at history, right? How cool is it that JP 43 is part of that, that legacy as well, that Jason Pridmore maybe has had just as much, if not more, influence in our industry than his father did as part of, as the first Superbike champion in the class.
Yeah, that was. I can remember watching that race, and it was incredible. Now the BMWs were handling well, but some of the other Superbikes, they didn't quite have the suspension worked out, so they were wobbling coming through the tri-oval, including the late Yvon Duhamel on a Kawasaki. I forget where he finished that day, but none of the Japanese Superbikes had anything for those BMWs that were absolutely hot rod machines, and boy, they were quick, and those two riders, McLaughlin and Pridmore, just split from the field and had a race-long battle. I don't know how many times they swapped positions, but it's one of those races, even 50 years later, still sticks in my mind as though it just happened yesterday. So I'm really looking forward to all of the stuff that they are going to be putting together with the display of the bikes, the dinner on Saturday night that I said will be sure to be there.
Back
oh, sorry, I was just going to jump in and say to Pat. So Pat, you'll probably remember this about 76 with those wobbly Superbikes. Well, the amazing thing was those R90S's. You look back at that and think they were, air-cooled, horizontally opposed twins, right? But they had monoshock rear suspensions on them, which were special to those bikes for that race too. That was cool.
Yeah, they were really tricked out, and some of the bits and pieces that they put into the building the motor, Udo Giedel and Schuster, boy, they did an incredible job. Those bikes were reliable, they were fast, they handled, and they really increased the horsepower on a somewhat docile twin-cylinder motorcycle. And it's great that these bikes, I saw some pictures of them, Sean. It looks like they just came off the racetrack in 1976. So I'm not sure where they're going to have that display. I assume somewhere in the fan zone. And looking forward to getting in there and watching that. We've been yakking about the 200. Other than that, we haven't really spoken about who could possibly win it and who are the top contenders this year.
We're going to get to that. Yeah. We're going to get to that.
Real quick. I wasn't even born in 76, so I don't remember any of that. So I'm excited to see these bikes for sure.
Okay, you're done. You're done. You're out of here. You're done. I wasn't very old, but I was alive. Before we get too far past 1976, though, I want to talk about the winner of the Daytona 200 in 1976, which at the time he was the youngest winner of the Daytona 200, Johnny Ciccato, who won on the TZ 750. At the time, he was still the youngest. I think he was 19 years old, or within a couple months of being 19 years old. But he was the youngest at 19/20 years old. And before we get too far, Gary Nixon, legend, was second. Pat Hennon was third in that 1976 Daytona 200. Listen to these names. Gene Romero was fourth. And some other honorable mentions. 3-time winner Kenny Roberts was 9th. Longtime Daytona announcer Richard Chambers was 28th. Florida race legend and race promoter Henry DeGao was 33rd in that race. Yvon Duhamel, Miguel's father, was 36th in that race. And Bruce Hammer, the co-founder of Team Hammer, was 41st of 78 racers on the grid that year. What are your Sean and Pat? What are your collective thoughts of the 1976 Daytona 200 crowd?
Well, I have a thought about that. I want to jump in because I've been so focused on that Superbike race that I lost track of the fact that Johnny Ciccato on a two-stroke won that race that year. But
that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, Sean. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, but I have a question for you, and really, it's one for maybe Pat. So, Pat, I thought Brad Andres was the youngest. He was 19 as well. Was Johnny younger than him by some months or something? Because Brad was also 19 in 1955 when he went on a Harley. Now, none of us was there for that, but I don't know. That's what we've always said was Brad Andres, but maybe it is Johnny. Maybe we need to fix that.
Yeah, I know there were some very young riders more recently who have been right there, but it's interesting with Ciccato or Ciccato. Again, I've heard a bunch of different pronunciations. The year before, I don't know exactly what happened, but he ended up starting in the back row of the 200 in the third wave in 1975 when Gene Romero won. And he came all the way through the field and ended up finishing third. So a year later, he comes back and he actually wins it. And he was one of the dominant riders that year on that. It was a factory Yamaha out of the Venezuelan Yamaha distributor that they had put together. So
Venemotos. And you know who would know this answer is absolutely Roberto Pietri would know, because he's obviously from Venezuela and knows Johnny pretty well. So I need to find that out. That's something. I'm glad you brought it up, Kenny, because that's something good to know.
That's what I'm here for.
Do you guys know who do you guys know who the youngest pole sitter is in Daytona 200 history? Doesn't go back that far. And I will tell you, well, Pat, was there a time where you had to be 18 to race in that race?
I thought it was 16, maybe way back when, but I thought if you were 16, you could run the Daytona 200. And I know
it is 16 now. It's 16 now. I just didn't know if in 1955 when Brad Andres won it, he was 19. I don't know if it was 18 back then, because you mentioned about Johnny the year before. So, we need to find that out. But I will tell you this, the youngest to earn the pole is Sean Dillon Kelly. You mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
The youngest rider ever was Kale Yakov a couple of years ago. But
that makes sense. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something. We have a preliminary. I wanted to get you guys the entry list. We couldn't get it together because I want to mention this because there's still a couple riders that aren't on it. And Pat, what was your magic number for entries?
Well, I mean, way back when there were, probably over 100 riders entered. 80 was the max back in the mid 70s when I started going to Daytona, and they would start them in 3 waves, 30 riders, then 30, and then the final 20. And then they would have a few riders who had not qualified in the top 80 who would be alternates just in case something happened in the warm up or something happened, that they would be allowed to start. But,
recently you said, I think you said 53 or 54 is a good number. Is that what you said?
Well, I thought that given the fact that it's now a points race, you're running on the Dunlop spec tires, that's sort of a double-edged sword because some of the other tire manufacturer riders won't be running in the race, but now you've got an opportunity for any super sport rider who wants to contest the championship has got to run Daytona. And in fact, when I saw it was announced, I was looking to see if in fact Daytona would be double points. So almost makes it, if you got any desire to win that championship, you've got to run Daytona. But
that was, I will tell you, that was in place. Some of the teams wanted to do that. They wanted to do double points. And then they talked about, not quite double points, but additional points. It ends up where it's not going to be that way. But I will tell you right now, the entry list, which is still preliminary, we're at 50 exactly. But I know of one rider who is absolutely going to be entered and isn't names on the list yet. So I know there are going to be at least 51. There may be a couple of more. We're still trying to see about that, but it's definitely over 50. So, and just to say, so last year we had the Yart team and the True Love brothers from England, and we had a couple other,
Peter Hickman,
and Peter Hickman. Now Peter Hickman is going to be back this year. There's 3 Brits. There's Peter Hickman,
Gary
Davey
Johnson,
and Gary Johnson,
Jamie
and they're going to be
Todd.
on Dunlops because they have to be.
Danny
Yep.
Webb's going to be there too as well.
Yes, Danny Webb. Yeah, so we are going to get some of the guys. I didn't think we'd get the Yart guys coming over, and I don't know what the situation is with the True Love brothers. Maybe they were sponsored by Pirelli as well.
Yeah.
It's affected some of our Canadian riders, which Pat we were talking about. I love seeing Ben Young. I love that guy so much. He raced with us for a while before going up there and absolutely dominated in Canada. So we're going to miss him this year, but there are a couple of Canadians though who are going to be there.
Well, and a couple of years ago, Pat and I walked through the garage area and we did a little piece called Canada Corner, which for those that have been to Road America know that that's turned 12 at Road America. But we did a Canada Corner piece for Cyclevision Network where we walked around and just interviewed all the Canadians because they were all in one big garage. And of course, most all of them were because of the Bridgestone tire deal in the Canadian Superbike Championship. I think almost all of them were on Bridgestones and they were developing the Bridgestones, and they've continued to do that in the fall race, the ASRA Race of Champions. They continue to be down there pushing the Bridgestone tires farther and farther. So it's really too bad that those riders can't come down. Although I have to assume that their contracts are more specific to, that they have to run Bridgestones in the Canadian Superbike Championship. And maybe there's a clause where they can run a different tire in a race like the Daytona 200 when it's a specific spec race, not part of the Canadian Superbike Championship. Do you know if any of that has come into play?
Well, Kenny, I think Bridgestone did sponsor and support a lot of the top Canadian riders like Ben Young, like Trevor Daly. Daly is there. He's actually the chief mechanic for PJ Jacobson.
That's right.
And he builds a lot of the quick change apparatus. And I think a lot of teams buy his equipment. He apparently has been very busy over the winter months. We've had a real cold and snowy winter up here. And but he's going to be there. Exchanged a couple of texts with him. And as far as I know, one Canadian rider, Dylan Bauer, who races the regional series, I believe he's entered. And then there was a big question mark as to whether Torrin Collins, who was 9th in the Super Sport Championship last year, he's just 19 years of age, whether or not he would enter the 200 or not. He is going to run all of the other Moto America Super Sport races, but Daytona is a question mark. Hopefully they found the sponsorship money to run him, because he is certainly one of our up-and-coming riders and won the Canadian Super Sport Championship last year.
Yeah, he's on the list, Pat, for sure, with Altus Motorsports. So
okay, great.
Yeah, so he was announced for that team, but I know they were trying to put together the situation with Torrin. So and he'll be on a Suzuki. The other guys will be on R9s, but he's going to be the Suzuki rider. So Torrin's an awesome kid.
So I was going to say one of the news pieces over the wintertime was the fact that Altus actually moved from the Suzuki platforms to Yamaha. So what you're saying, Sean, is that Altus is going to actually have 2 manufacturers under the truck at Daytona?
You know what? I got to correct myself. They were going to, but it's now going to be a Yamaha as well. So they're fully Yamaha. They were 2 bikes on Suzuki's and 2 on Yamaha last year. So I have to correct myself. Gotcha. They're all Yamaha R9s. So, and it's pretty cool for Altus because they do the support program for off-road stuff for the amateur motocross. Jarrett Nassani's brother Jordan runs that program, so they have a long history with Yamaha. So it's nice synergy for them.
And I think my Brendan Kelston is actually going to be with BRP this year too.
Yes, he is.
R9.
Yes, he is.
Is he going to be at the Daytona 200? Is he on the list?
His first time ever at Daytona racing.
I can't wait. Yes.
And then his teammate is a guy who's been to Daytona more times than almost anybody, and it's Josh Hayes. So it's like the bookends of the two of them. So
Master and the apprentice.
Yeah. So maybe it's a good time. I mean, obviously we've already started to do that. Let's look at some of the bigger stories within the teams that got shuffled up a little bit. Obviously, the big news over the wintertime was the fact that Josh Herron moved away from the moved away from the Warhorse HSBK Ducati team, and he's now with the Rahal Ducati team racing Super Sport instead of Super Bike. in some ways you could look at that as, not cross lateral, but you could, some people would say, oh, well, why would he be going backwards? But at the same time, this is a chance for him to win 5 times. And
yes,
I've done several podcasts already, several shows already where I just, keep beating this dead horse, but he's the only guy in the history of Daytona 200. He's the only guy that's won it 3 times in a row.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
He has the chance to win it 4 times in a row, and the 5th time to become only the 3rd rider ever to win it 5 times. There's kind of a lot on the line here. And Sean, I don't know if you've spoken to him much in this offseason, but is he feeling any of that pressure? Is he putting that pressure on himself? Is the team giving him that pressure? How do you think his mindset is moving into this race in 2 weeks?
I mean, he's super excited to be on a V2 because he's done so well in the past on that bike. And he's really excited to be with Ray Hall. I mean, that program's very solid. He's also really excited to be a 3rd rider on that team. That's going to be crazy. Their pit stops and their pit strategy with 3 of them.
I have to imagine that coming off of the Superbike back onto a V2 is going to feel like a toy to him.
100%.
And I have to imagine he's just going to wring the crap out of that thing.
Yeah.
And that with as well as he's done and as much control as he's had, if they get that Ray Hall Ducati anywhere close to where Warhorse Ducati's was in the last few years, this isn't going to be a race at all.
Yeah. And Josh,
unfortunately for the field.
And Daytona is Josh's by far favorite race. He loves the Daytona 200. That's his race. So he's been going there for a long time. And so, yeah, good money to bet on him for sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
And they stepped up with a new sponsor as well. The Desnuda Tequila is going to be the brand on the side of that motorcycle, at least, if not for the season, at least for the Daytona 200, correct?
Yeah, for the season and specifically for him. He kind of brought that into the team. And so, that's going to be really cool.
And if no one's had it before, if nobody knew what that was before, the Desnuda Tequila is just it's a small batch tequila. So, I'm assuming that we'll have some to taste in Victory Lane after the race.
Right.
And let's hope so.
We can't forget about DeMario, right? Alessandro DeMario.
Nope.
He's with Ray Hall in the 600.
No, I'm excited to see what he can do. And Kayla's good too. Yeah.
I know. I
think Kayla's fitness is on point. I think she's ready to go.
Yeah, and the Ducati North America gave all of those riders that are on Ducatis, V4Ss to practice on, and that's the Superbike riders as well. So Kayla's been training on her V4S, and they've all got them. I mean, obviously Josh knows that the V2 very well, so it's going to be great. But I will throw out Blake Davis is coming for blood there for sure. Without Matthew blocking him, so to speck, without Matthew Skoltz, and they're pretty motivated too. Yeah. So
that kid is on fire, and I really like the people that have been around Blake Davis for the last few years have really sort of insulated him to just stay on track and not get too far ahead too fast. Right. And especially a race like Daytona, I'm sure Pat Gonzalez has seen people come in and flash, right, and think, oh, this guy's going to just kill it. But it was just too much too soon. And which brings up a quick point. We have Daryl Binder, who's coming over, right, to ride the Warhorse HSBK Ducati Flow for Law bike. That's going to be a V2. And then Riston Grigg is also on that machine. And, people may remember Riston Grigg's father, Steve Grigg, who was a past, CCS champion, who also famously rode, some of those Muzzy Raptors to some championships in the past. So Steve Grigg is still very much a part of Riston's future here. He did a lot of motocross, supercross, very successful. He was looking to be one of the stars last year, but got hurt early in testing, right?
Yes. Yes, he did.
And so this is sort of the return of Riston Grigg and the debut of Daryl Binder in the U.S. on the Warhorse HSBK Ducati Flow for Law machine. So this should be really interesting to have not just one major team in the 200, but 2 factory supported Ducati teams ready to go. I mean, this might be the only time in history that we see a Ducati sweep if all of these guys live up to their potential.
Yeah. Let me tell you one thing about, so Riston Grigg, for sure. And that their team is actually, so Barry Gilson's involved in that too. It's Celtic Racing, and then it's Economy Lube Plus Tire, which Pat probably knows is a big big organization up in Canada, and sponsored Trevor Daly, I think, last year. Didn't they?
They sponsored a number of riders on Ducatis, and Steve Moxey, who heads up that organization, he is a former racer himself, and I remember announcing his races back in the 80s. So he's very much involved in the sport, has been a big part of CSBK for a number of years, but does get in there with his sponsorship for a lot of the Moto America rides. So that'll be interesting to see. And definitely looking at the entry, I don't have the full list as Sean does at the moment, but I'm sure that'll be coming out shortly. I tell you one pairing, and we mentioned it earlier, Peter Hickman, who was 4th last year, and Davey Todd. Todd has moved from Honda, where he raced Hondas at this past year's Isle of Man TT. Those 2 riders are going to be running those Triumph 765s in the Northwest 200 and in the Isle of Man. So this is a serious effort. I think Hickman, I think this is his 3rd year. He knows what it takes to win. And with all of these teams, given the fact that it is so close in qualifying, and we saw the race last year, 12 riders swapping positions in almost every corner. And then, after the second red flag, Heron sort of took command and won the race by, I think, a little over 5 seconds. But I think this is as strong a Daytona 200 field that we have seen in a long, long time.
Absolutely. Well, and let's address the elephant in the room, which is the team that was on the podium the last couple of years and is probably one of the strongest teams in the paddock, and has been one of the strongest teams in the paddock for decades. The Team Hammer Vision Wheel.
My boy Tyler Scott's got a point to prove for sure at the 200.
He sure does.
100%.
You've Richie Escalante and Tyler Scott, who have been so close to winning, and in my opinion, had the formula if didn't run out of gas, didn't have a little flop on a pit stop, right? A little bit of bad luck, but those are the things that make or break the Daytona 200, right, guys? I mean, so Chris and I were able to sit with Tyler Scott off the record last fall at the Daytona Race of Champions with the ASRA. And I specifically, I talked to him, and I talked to Chris Ulrich, and I talked to John, again, 100% off the record. I was like, dude, what is it going to take for you guys to win this stinking race, man? Because you can't argue that the team isn't competitive. You can't argue that the team doesn't have the experience and equipment. You can't argue that the riders aren't ready, or that they're not in shape, or that they don't have the fitness. You can't argue any of those things. They are probably the best, well put, most put together team in the history of the race, and they don't have a win. How do we get them there?
Yeah, they've had some bad luck there. I mean, Richie had that issue with Heron where they came together too, which ruined that day 200 for him. But so they've just had some things. But Tyler Scott, I mean, obviously he's a supreme talent and had a tough time last year. He's going to bounce back from that. And I mean, Richie is Richie. Richie will do his thing. So this could be one of their best chances to win that thing. So
they are so ready.
Yeah, they are
so ready.
Yeah.
So
Kenny,
so that's.
I was just going to say, speaking of Tyler Scott, he had the fastest time in the time attack last year, that minute 48.135. And from what I'm seeing with the development of the motorcycles, maybe an even better Daytona 200 tire from Dunlop. I think we're looking at a mid to high minute 47, as long as the weather conditions are decent for the pole position on Friday. Among those, I guess the top 10 riders, Sean, is it the same format?
Absolutely. Yeah. Time attack is set up going to be the same way. Yep.
And then the other question over the years, of course, has been, what is the percentage of the pole time that you've got to turn to make it into the field? I believe last year it was at 110, or I think it's been as low as 108%.
Right.
Where does that sit for this year?
I meant to check that before talking to you guys. I wanted to say I thought it was 110 or 108, but I should have gotten that information. I apologize for that.
But either way, you've got to run a quick time, not maybe a minute 48 and change, but you've got to be right there. And I think that time works out to somewhere around a minute 55, a minute 56. You've got to be at least there to get within whatever the percentage is going to be, 108 or 110. So that's another factor. But glad to hear tonight that right now there's 51 riders who are entered in the 200, and hopefully with some late entries coming in over the next week or two, we're looking at somewhere around 60 riders entered for the 200.
Yeah. Looking at Josh the lap times.
I was going to say, didn't Josh Herron has the lap record at 147.879?
In 2025, that was the race lap record.
Okay. Right.
I was just going to jump into that. So the fastest times over the last couple of years, Josh Herron on the Ducati has the fastest race time, and that was set in 2025 at a 47.879. The best qualifying lap was Richie Escalante on the Suzuki in 24, which was a 47.833. Last year, Herron qualified 47.980. So a little bit of a difference between 24, 25. But so Escalante actually has the fastest of the qualifying times from what I saw. Obviously, Sean has the official Moto America stuff in the press kit, but those are the fastest times from them. And then Pat and I were down there for the fastest overall lap times when Stefano Mesa on the BMW set those laps. Pat, the overall track record at Daytona is actually set by Stefano Mesa on a BMW of 44.046.
Right.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
That's on 1,000cc BMW Superbike with special tires that only are going to last about 4 laps. And
that's right. That's right. That was on the Unlimited Superbike setup. The Unlimited Super Sport setup for Stefano Mesa on a BMW, his lap time was a 45.5. And then before that on the Kawasaki was a 45.9. And then previous to that was Corey West on a 46.5. But when Mesa set that, I don't know if you remember, Pat, we just kind of knew it just felt fast, didn't it? He went out there and he went from the 45.9, he went to a 45.5. And then the next lap, he literally took a full half a second off that lap. We were like, what just happened? Is that? But that was the official lap of 44.046 is the overall lap record for the thousands, which, at some point, Sean, are we going to see Superbikes back at Daytona again in a sprint race?
I want to talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a perfect segue. But before I did look it up, it's 110%. It is 110% this year, Pat. Okay. So, we get this a lot. We get a lot of commentary on our social media about, it's nothing with these, 600s or 750s or Super Sport Next Generation.
Way more competitive, though.
But, oh my gosh. Yeah. And you think about, it started out being 4-stroke, then it went to 2-stroke GP bikes. We had 600s, we had Formula Extreme based 600 based Formula Extreme bikes, Super Sport Next Generation, which are 750s, which are what used to be Superbike. I don't know if this is true, and I'm not going to cast aspersions at all on Dunlop or any other tire manufacturer, but it feels like at Daytona, I'm not going to say that the tires have always been behind the performance of the motorcycles, but there are clearly safety issues with this whole thing. So, we can run King of the Baggers, not for a lot of laps, but we do run King of the Baggers around that banking, and they're 630 some pounds.
Yeah,
but they don't run for
625. Yeah, 625 pounds, right?
Yeah, they don't run for a lot of laps, but that's for a reason. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Do we need to?
Well, yeah, no, and I agree with you. It just, Superbikes is the premier class in the United States, right? And Superbikes is the premier class everywhere. So, it's just, is there a time in which, we might see Superbikes back there? And again, this is my perspective from being a tire guy, being a racer, and being the head of a very competitive top tier Superbike team in the AMA Pro paddock. Is the tire war, we'll call it, is always, or the secret of tires is always trying to figure out how soft can we make the compound and construction to go the number of laps that we need, right, to put on a good show for it to be safe and have maximum traction, right, without all these other things. And there was times when we were testing the Dunlop tires on Superbikes, and I'm not going to say who was on them or what team it was with, but sometimes the teams would run a little bit low tire pressure, and it would pinch when the rider would go across a curb, right? So you've got a bike on the edge of the tire, goes across a curb, pinches the soft sidewall against it. Now it's losing more pressure. Now we're almost 200 miles an hour on a banking for. So here's some data that a lot of people may not know. On our Jordan Superbike with Aaron Yates on board in 2007, 2008, when he was coming out of the chicane, right, all the way around to turn 1, he was at full throttle for 28 seconds. Think about how long that is.
Yeah.
At 195 plus miles per hour, right?
Kenny, do you know what tire pressures they were running then?
I mean, I do. They're similar to what they were, a little bit higher than they are now.
Okay, but again, it's incredible how low the tire pressure is. It's incredible. People don't realize.
Well, and again, when you're putting all of these things together, right, what it comes down to is every tire manufacturer, Dunlop included, and I'm not coming to the defense of Dunlop just because I was a Dunlop guy for a million years, but here's the thing: is the tire company is very confident in the tire that they've produced. The problem is trusting the customer and the rider and the team and the crew chiefs to make the right call and not let those tires be out on the racetrack longer than they are designed to perform. Does that make sense?
Very good point.
And so I don't think that it has anything to do with the tire and what tire's good and what tire's bad. Because here's the thing: is Pirelli and Bridgestone have created tires that are fantastic for privateer riders and teams to do whatever they want at whatever racetrack they want. And when you get to Daytona, maybe they have a couple of special specs to them because of what that place is, right?
Yeah.
Dunlop is producing tires specifically for certain classes at the tracks that they run at here, right? And they're not currently building a tire for the Daytona 200 because they haven't been involved in that race necessarily with all of the best teams necessarily to develop that tire properly, right? And so again, I don't think like they're trying to build a tire where if you're on a Dunlop tire and you're going to pit within the proper window for that tire, they're good with it. They're like, yeah, cool, run it. That's a 19 lap tire. Do whatever you want with it. It's going to be destroyed when you're done, but you're going to have grip all the way to the end, right? But now if I'm running a privateer team and I'm going, man, I'm going to squeeze another 5 laps out of that tire, the tire's not designed to do that. And now who's liable for and now who's on the hook for the liability if that tire comes apart at lap 22 when they were supposed to pit at lap 19? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with the tire technology, but here's the thing: is a lot of privateers, the teams, the riders, the crew chiefs, or whatever, they're not Al Ludington. They are not Richie Doan. They are not right. They are not on the Olin's team. They don't get the same support. And if that bike isn't set up to push that tire to its limit for the window that it was created for, then there's a liability and there's all kinds of stuff that come along with that if there's a failure, right? And so I think that and is it worth it for a tire company to create a tire that's going to go 50 laps and not have the grip or performance that's expected from it? I think that that's an unfair expectation, right?
Okay, so Kenny, sorry, I want to revisit your question in the beginning because here's another factor we can get into. You ask if we're ever going to get superbikes back in the Daytona 200. I'm actually going to say
no. Sorry, that wasn't my question. I don't think that superbikes should be in the Daytona 200. That wasn't my question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just want to see superbikes racing at Daytona.
Oh, okay.
In a sprint race. I think that the Daytona 200 is perfect with 600cc machines. I think that there are more people that can ride them to their full potential. I think that it's better on tires, which makes it more competitive. I think that it's more affordable because of everything that goes along with it. But most importantly, I think that there are more riders that can push the 600s to their full potential, which makes for a way better race. Whereas if we're looking at superbikes, there's maybe 5. I mean, how many true contenders do we have for the Daytona 200? I mean, I have a list of at least 10 people that could literally win the Daytona 200 this year, right? From Heron, Escalante, Scott, Hickman, Posh, Eslick's not riding, Michael Dunlop, Joseph Lemandry, right?
Blake Davis.
Hayden Gillum, if you
Davis,
there's any of these guys could win the Daytona 200, right?
Right.
But you put them on superbikes and you just shrunk that field to like a minimal 3, maybe 5, maybe.
Okay, I'm going to split hairs here. This is what I was getting at. So this is what I'm driving at. And Pat, you'll appreciate this. Okay, here's what I think. I think superbikes will be in the Daytona 200 again. And here's why. And this is full due respect to BMW. But I think in a couple of years, we're not going to have leader bikes. I really don't. I think this Super Sport next generation is being set up to be what super bikes are going to become. And 750s were super bikes back then. And, I think because of what's going on in MotoGP, I don't think MotoGP wants to have leader bikes in World Superbike, and we do defer a little bit to World Superbike with what we do. A lot of our stuff does. I think they're going to drop down in displacement because displacement's going down in MotoGP, and I think the manufacturers are going to stop making leader bikes. We're starting to see it. In other countries, the R1 you can't buy as a street bike. You still can in the US because it still sells. And there are other companies, like I said, BMW could make a 750 or an 800 or whatever they want to do down the road. I just think it's going to be Superbike's going to be a smaller displacement. So that's splitting hairs a little bit there. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, I think that, the history of the Superbike class being what it's always been, right? It was 750s and then they stopped making 750s and we're like, well, I guess we'll run thousands.
Yes.
Right. Because that's just kind of where it went. But when you get into that type of power, right? I know what our Jordan Superbike was making, and it was completely insane, and I couldn't believe it. And I had to see the numbers for myself, and the torque curves and everything. But there are very few riders that can handle that power and performance that have developed the skill set to do that. And honestly, we see it in the Moto America Superbike Championship, right? That's not a class where 10 guys on any given weekend could win that race. It's really not. And not taking anything away from the Moto America Championship, I think it's one of the best national championships in the entire world, right? But there's only a handful of guys that can ride those bikes at that level and win races and championships on them. And it's an absolutely insane skill set. Yeah. Now, everybody else not taking anything away from the rest of the field, because the entire field is super talented, right? Because they're all within a certain percentage of the fastest guys. But look at the distance between the elite in that class and everybody else. And that in itself is telling you that not everybody can ride or prepare those motorcycles at the same level, which isn't anything new, right? But it used to be that we had 20 factory superbikes in a field, and we had 30 factory super stock guys in the field, and we
Right.
had 30 super sport guys in the field, right? And we just don't have those numbers, nor do we have the number of teams building those elite machines, nor do we have the amount of support that we used to have from the manufacturers, because everybody's out of money. And we don't have sponsors to help pay for those things to build better motorcycles, or to pay the salaries for riders who want to be or have the ability to be professionals. Right.
Well, that save that Cameron Bobier had last year at Coda. I mean, how many riders can do that? That was Mark Marquez level.
I know. But also back in the day, hitting on y'all's point too, is the superbike guys like Aaron Yates and them, when they raced the 750 superbikes, they also had to contest the 600s too as well on that same weekend.
Dual class. I'd love to see that come
me
back.
too. So it's completely different than what it used to be, right? So
right.
I think it would be cool to say, hey, look, if you're going to field a superbike team, you have to field a super sport team as well.
100%.
Like, in my opinion, that should almost be, a thing. But obviously you can't force people to spend money, right? So, but I love I love that concept, because you look at Miguel de Hamel back in the day. Not only did he win the Daytona 200 on a superbike, but he was also on the podium in the 600 super sport race. I mean, all those guys pulling double duty, right, Pat?
And Formula Extreme.
Yeah, make sure his mic's unmuted.
We can't hear you, Pat. Is your mic on mute?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think I've heard that argument from, big superbike fans. Oh, I don't, the Daytona 200, they're not running superbikes. But in terms of great racing, entertainment, close competitive racing, like the super sport class has been incredible at Daytona. As I said, last year, 12, might even be as many as 14 riders at least early. The pit stops split it apart. But I think this year we're looking at another multi-rider battle on lap number 57 coming out of the chicane. I think it's going to be extremely competitive, and maybe a second or less separating the top 12 to 15 riders once they get into the qualifying.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, real quick on the Canadian Superbike Championship, the Superbike class up there. So Colin, the Canadian Superbike Championship is really famous for having one of the most competitive championships in the world, and their super sport /600 class and the Superbike class in the past were all spec classes, a weight to horsepower limit for those. Is the Canadian Superbike Championship still set up for parity in that way?
Yeah, they do have a horsepower limit. I don't know if they've changed it this year, but it was around 200.
And that continues to be
horsepower.
a very competitive, and that still continues to be a very competitive championship, right? I mean, any given weekend you'd have 5 to 10 guys that could win that race, right?
Yeah, there's usually a pack of about 4 or 5, sometimes 6. Ben Young won his 5th last year on the Honda. They did a great job of developing that bike. He's in his 2nd and final year of that Honda contract. And, unfortunately, we won't see him at Daytona this year, because I think he ended up finishing 9th last year on one of the Bridgestone Suzuki machines. But I think it's going to be a great 200. Something tells me that Hickman and Todd, of course, Todd's going to benefit from all of the experience from somebody like Peter Hickman. And those Triumphs are going to be fast, and they're going to be reliable. So, if it isn't going to be a Josh Herron or one of the other top Moto America regulars, look at either Hickman or Todd, and they'll work together very closely through the practice and the qualifying.
110%. I've actually been to Peter Hickman's shop in Louth when I went there in 23 Cadwell Park. So I got to take a tour with Peter himself, and it met his dad. And it was listen, them boys are coming. I've had a lot of conversations with them on the phones, and they're coming to win. They're not coming to play around, especially Peter. He wants to really get this win under his belt for sure. And
I think that it would add.
coming too.
Certainly add to
he's got another
legacy.
Vengeance, so. Oh,
certainly add to his legacy, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. A
100%,
couple other riders that we didn't really talk about. Joseph Lamandry Jr. is entered. He's
that
coming
kid.
down.
Me too.
He is so fast. And Pat,
Yes,
we saw him in the ASRA Race of Champions. And remember, they run a 200-mile race down there, just over 200 miles, 2.5 hours. And Lamandry was top 5 for the last couple of years down there. So, and he finished 10th last year. So he's got to be a contender. Gabriel Da Silva, who won the GTO race down there this past fall, he's going to be on a Suzuki. He's been very fast last couple of years. He could win it. And then you've got Super Carl Soltis on a Suzuki who finished 11th last year. He's a contender and he's in good shape. So, you can't really rule him out either. Those are 3 kind of dark horse guys that we need to be keeping our eyes on this year too.
Yeah, Super Carl, I think, will probably be on the best machine he has run in the Daytona 200 this year. And as you said, last year he was still recovering from an injury, wasn't 100%. Really put in a courageous ride. He's 100% fit, and I think he will be certainly. I don't know if he's got what it takes to win it, but certainly capable of running up in the top 10, maybe even top 5.
Yeah, he's actually with my buddy Malcolm on his team on that Astro JJR Hippo.
Oh yeah,
Mookie. Yep, that's who he's with. So,
and Lamandry and Da Silva, I believe, are on the Jarritos Suzuki's Suzuki GSXR 750s this year.
Yep.
So. I wanted to look, Pat. I wanted to talk a little bit. A couple of years ago, you brought up, you and I were kind of talking offline, and you brought up what I thought was one of the most brilliant concepts that we've missed. And maybe this is a great time to talk about it because Sean Bice is on with us. But we talked about celebrating the past champions per decade, and honestly, I'm really disappointed that we missed the opportunity to celebrate a couple guys in the past. In 2024, it was the 50th anniversary of Giacomo Agostini winning in 1974, right? Agostini, who won One of One. It was the 40th anniversary of Kenny Roberts winning for the 3rd time in 1984. It was 1994 was the 30th anniversary of Scott Russell winning for the 2nd time. 2004, Matt Mladen won for the 3rd time, and then Danny Eslick in 2014, and then Josh Herron won his 3rd out of 4 in 2024. So 50 years of 5 decades of winners at the Daytona 200, and we completely missed the opportunity to celebrate those guys. And to your point, 1974 with Giacomo Agostini. That was, he really made the Daytona 200 an international race when he came over as the world champion, right? And rode the Daytona 200, won the Daytona 200, and then it became what it is. And then Kenny Roberts, Scott Russell, Matt Mladen. I mean, these are legends of our sport. We missed the opportunity to celebrate them. And then in 2025, we go to the 50th anniversary of Romero winning in 75, Freddie Spencer from 1985, when he not only won the Daytona 200, but won the 500 GP, the 250 GP, the Superbike race, the 200, all these things. We missed the opportunity to celebrate that. 1995, Scott Russell won it for the 3rd time. 2005, Miguel Duhamel won it for the 5th time. 2015, Danny Eslick won it for the 2nd time. Josh Herron won it for the 4th time last year. And this year, in 2026, we're looking at 50 years ago, 1976 of Johnny Ciccato. 1986 was Eddie Lawson, who won it for the 1st of 2 times. 1996, Miguel Duhamel won it for the 2nd of 5 times. And then this is when we start to see the shift in classes. 2006, Jake Zemke won it. And
2016, Michael Barnes.
2016, Michael Barnes, and then of course 2026. We don't know, right? So we've missed the opportunity to celebrate these guys at Daytona and the decades of which they won. And your point was a few years back is that we should be working with ARMA and Moto America and the Speedway to have these motorcycles and riders available in the fan zone so that we can celebrate the bikes, the riders, the manufacturers, and be able to bring some of that history back to Daytona. Talk a little bit about that concept of that and kind of where should we be going with this?
Well, the Daytona 200 and Daytona Bike Week in general has such a rich and illustrious history that I think it just broadens the appeal of the whole event if we celebrate some of those milestones. And as I said at the top of the show, tip of the announcer's cap to BMW to celebrate that first Superbike race in 1976, to bring back the bikes, bring back the riders. And I think it's going to attract a lot of the long-time sort of 60 and older crowd who might have been there at Daytona like I was to watch that race. So I think that is a way to just expand the appeal base of the sport and figure out, what are those things. Now, next year, 2027, we've got Steve Baker, 50 years that he won the 200, is off the top of my head, is that Wayne Rainey's Daytona 200 win in 87? I think I might be right there. And then it goes on from there. So anytime you can bring back some of these great riders and the motorcycles, if they're available, I think it just adds another element to the whole Daytona Bike Week appeal. And I think it's something that should be looked at. Obviously, it's going to take money. It's going to take sponsors. It's going to need cooperation from different, motorcycle owners, cooperation from an organization like the Barber Museum that's got so many great motorcycles in there. And it's sort of like this celebration of the Daytona 200 history, whatever that milestone or that year happens to be, whether it's 50, 40, 30 years or whatever. Wouldn't it be cool to bring back a Miguel Duhamel and a Scott Russell to sort of celebrate that era when they were the two dominant riders throughout the most of the 1990s, when they won all their most of their Superbike championships and Daytona 200 wins?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think of the opportunity we lost when we didn't celebrate Agostini, Roberts, Russell, Mladen, right? And and then again, Romero, Spencer, Russell, Duhamel, I mean, Eslick and Heron, they're still around, right? Like we still have access to those guys. But I think that we really missed the opportunity to miss them. Sorry, my dog in the background. My daughter's having people over, and but you were right. 1987 was Wayne Rainey. 97 was Scott Russell, who won it for the fourth time. 07, anybody remember 07? One of my guys.
Not Chaz Davies.
Nope, he was 08.
Oh, 08, right.
Steve Rapp, the rap star, in 2007. My
Attack
guy.
Performance Kawasaki.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Danny Eslick again the third time in 2017. And so I think it's a great opportunity and really, for me and Sean, I think that, it's a great opportunity for us to just kind of, start beating on that horse a little bit and get these guys down here and maybe start try to work with some of the ARMA folks to come to Daytona and celebrate these things. Because really, let's be honest, it's not the Speedway's job to do that, right? The Speedway's not connected to these riders and these manufacturers and these teams, but ARMA is, and Moto America is. And so I feel like it's our responsibility to get those guys involved and those guys have and I guess, Sean, one of the things that's happening is that they're doing that Vintage Fest at Barber every year, and that's really where we're starting to see the celebration of these guys. But they're celebrating it at Barber, with Wira and with ARMA, and they're not celebrating it at Daytona with AMA Pro and Moto America, where their legends weren't built at Barber Motorsports Park. These legends were built at Daytona, and we need to celebrate their history and their legacy at Daytona. And I just feel like we need to, not that we need to move the Vintage Fest from the fall races down there, but we need to also make sure that we're doing it here at Daytona Beach.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I'm trying to do this year, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm really pushing for this will, as we talked about at the opening of this the road racing part of this is, it's the 50 years of Superbikes. So I want to have a grand marshal at every round this year in our Superbike class. And it's not hard to do, really, because Road Atlanta, Scott Russell's usually there all the time. Yep. Scott Russell could be the grand marshal at Road Atlanta, and he should be. That's where he's from. So I'm trying to do that. I know that's not just Daytona, but you're right about Daytona, the heritage. And man, it's like every year, it's like you look back and you're like, oh man, think about, what you said, these milestones of,
we missed it,
40 years, 30 years, 50 years, all that stuff. So,
and we missed it. We missed it.
Yeah, we missed it.
And on it, I mean, all due respect to Mr. Agostini, he might not be here for 60.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
And 60 is a whole other number that, that may be beyond, what we're able to celebrate. But, but I feel like, Pat, ever since Pat and I had that conversation, I've just really been on this and tracking it and trying to just sort of document some of these things. And so I feel like we need to continue pushing that direction.
Yeah. Agreed.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I don't have much else unless we want to look at what the Superbike season is gonna look like. I mean, obviously, JD Beach makes a big move from Honda over to Yamaha to partner with Bobby Fong on that Attack Racing Yamaha. That's massive news. Orange Cat Racing BMW, they've got SDK over there now. What do we think is going to happen with all of that?
I'll tell you, there's a lot of fear in a lot of teams about Cameron Beaubier on that brand new.
I was going to say, yeah.
And I'm telling you, teams have said it. They're like, they just think, oh, it's going to be Cameron for sure. And I mean, it was so improbable about him winning last year.
And why? Because they struggled so much on the BMW, yet he still did what he did.
It's incredible what he did last year.
What an amazing last race at Jersey too.
Oh my gosh.
You couldn't have wrote that better. No Hollywood script could have wrote that any better.
But all that being said, is Cam going to be better on that bike than Josh was? I mean, I don't. Is Cam better? Is Cam a better rider than Josh if it's the same bike, same setup?
The thing is, it is a different bike. I mean, it's the double-sided swing arm. I think there's some other differences with that bike too. I mean, it's a brand new motorcycle, and it's supposed to be the rear feel is supposed to be way better. I mean, because obviously that single-sided swing arm is great for Suzuka and all that kind of stuff, but it did have some compromise. It's great for consumers to be able to replace their rear wheel that easy, but it had some compromises with handling in the back, and Danilo Petrucci on those Dunlops struggled with that a little bit until he came to grips a little bit more with it. So so it's a different bike. I mean, we'll see. And man, you can't think of two different styles of riders than Josh Herron and Cameron Beaubier. I mean, one is so smooth in line. I always tell Cameron, you look so smooth. I don't even know how you do it. He goes, really? He goes, I feel like I'm all over the place on the bike. And I'm like, have you seen Josh Herron on a motorcycle? So
yeah, exactly. Well, and like you said, just completely different riding styles, right? And some of the guys, they're even when they practice on the supermoto bikes, they're kind of out of control. So it feels more controlled even when it's out of control. But joining Cam Beaubier on that HSBK Ducati is Ben Smith. Yes. What do we think about Ben Smith bumping up? I mean, what an outstanding opportunity for Ben Smith.
And it's going to help him so much.
And is he capable of performing at that level, or is this a development ride for him?
I think the first year is going to be a little tricky, but change of bike. I mean, he was riding that R1 for so long. But the thing about Benjamin, he's got no better carrot than having his teammate. And Cameron's such a good teammate to have. I mean, he put up with a lot of crap for years from Josh Hayes, and Josh Hayes will tell you that. But Josh Hayes is very impressed with Cameron Beaubier as a rider. So, Benjamin. It's in that position now where Cameron's going to be the Josh Hayes to what Benjamin Smith is now. It's going to help him a lot. And it's one of those things. I think we've all experienced this. You do anything, skiing, playing tennis, you are around somebody who's way better than you, and you're better than you've ever been, but you're still not as good as them. So it's going to up his game a lot, I think. And he's wanted this opportunity. I'm really happy for him.
I think it's going to be kind of a tough season for him. Exactly because of what you said, right?
Agreed.
He's got the, most winningest rider in the history of AMA as his teammate. It's like Pecco Bagnaia to Marc Marquez, right?
Yes.
It's exactly what it is. So
yeah,
Ben's a super talented kid. He's young. He's got a lot of years ahead of him. I hope he soaks it all in and puts it all out there and performs really well. So, and then of course we got PJ Jacobson on the bike too as well.
Yes, so, PJ and Matthew Skoltz. I mean, they're going to be battling once again. Yeah, Matthew's happy to be back on that R1, and he's going to have that swing arm that he coveted for years, which is that attack swing arm that he never got when he was at Westby. So he always had. I mean, the Suter swing arm's really good too, but he always wanted that thing that Richard Stamboli makes. So he's going to have it now, finally.
Doesn't everybody want whatever Richard Stamboli?
Yes, exactly.
Let's be honest.
And
One of the other things that was interesting is that, obviously the Warhorse HSBK Ducatis are new for this year for that team, but their previous equipment went over to the Wrench Racing team for Cam Peterson to ride. So that's going to be interesting, right? So Cam Peterson on what we already know is a winning bike, and his dad's going to help him by being his crew chief. I mean, that's a new scenario.
Yeah, that team's proven with Bobby Fung that they can win races, so it's going to be really cool. Yeah,
original grassroots racing right there, right? Dad and son taking it on. I love it.
It's so cool. They've never done it in Moto America, but they obviously did it all the time when they were in South Africa. But never done it, so that's a cool thing for them.
Yeah, I mean, my last memory of Robbie Peterson was when he was on Kenny Roberts' Marlboro 500s in the Formula USA races here in the States.
Yep, number 16 on that YZR 500. That's right. Hey, I want to go back to something, and I want to get Pat's thoughts on this. So, I mean, we've got other classes racing at Daytona, but I do want to specifically talk about Super Hooligan, and it's because we're going to have close to 50 riders in that class, and we always do. We've traditionally, over the past couple of years, had about 10 different brands, OEM brands that are involved in that class. This year, we actually again have 10 different brands, but we don't have the Energica anymore. An Aprilia is not going to be entered, but we have a couple of light fighters. We used to have a Zero bike. We don't have that anymore. So, and we're going to have that Irving Vincent is crazy. A motorcycle from 1930s technology is going to be out there. Air-cooled V-twin.
And Arch, right? Arch
and Arch with and Arch with the other bike that the bespoke bike that they have with their own engine unit that Suter created for them, and they're going to be way better this year. So it's just that class is so cool. I just love everything about that class.
Yeah, I love the Super Hooligan class, as you said. Just the mix of motorcycles. And that Irving Vincent, there are a lot of Vincent owners. In fact, I know a few of the Vincent owners group. They're as passionate a group of motorcyclists that you can find. And the bike that they have built, I think it's a monster. I think they've got one that's 1,620 cc's and an even larger displacement bike that they might be bringing to Daytona. So as long as they're ready to go, that bike, I think, is going to be very, very competitive. And, like the Daytona 200, Super Hooligans, usually a big pack of at least a dozen riders in the early part of that of that sprint race. And I think it's a great class, and looking forward to seeing them race at Daytona.
110%.
Sean, I've seen.
I was going to say, I just hate to be the guy making all the rules and all the bikes so competitive with all the different motorcycle manufacturers in there. It's like, yeah, but it's,
yeah. By the way, that was my job for a minute. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
But, well, with Formula USA.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Team Danny's job, making sure everybody. Yeah. And you guys were all about that horsepower stuff. You had a dyno them, right?
Well, it was easy, right? Remember that we had a championship that we were working in partnership a little bit with Canadian Superbike Championship, and Colin Fraser, was one of my mentors with some of that. And we had a Canadian American match race where they came down for a couple races, and we went up there for I think they came to Road America, and we went to Mossport. And so that was a little bit of a match race that we did.
Wow.
And so if you have similar rules, you can do that, right? But one of the things, not to be on that for too long, but one of the things that worked with that was, when we showed up at Daytona the first year, 2004, we had 80 motorcycles in the 600 sport bike class, and we had 76 bikes in the superbike class. And it was one of the best races that I had seen at Daytona in a long, long time, because I don't know if Pat remembers or not, but I remember just because it was our program, right? The 600 race at Daytona, there was a draft of about 12 motorcycles to the checkered flag. And I had never seen a race like that ever before at Daytona, with that many motorcycles. With very little exception, there was a 600cc race in about 93, 94 when I was working for Randy Renfro, when we had the Chaifeng Racing 600s. It was Randy Renfro and David Eslick, and I was working for Renfro and Eslick. I was doing both of their suspensions that year. And that race was completely insane. Also, there was literally 8-10 bikes in the lead draft, and you could throw a blanket over all of them, and they went all the way to the checkered flag with that. So very, very few exceptions. But I think that the more parity you have with stuff like that, the better it is. But my question for you, Sean, was going to be, obviously we see a lot of videos and a lot of footage of Josh Herron also riding that Light Fighter electric bike. But what I haven't seen are any comparative lap times. Can you fill us in at all on what some of the compared lap times are between what he's doing on that bike and what some of the other super hooligans have done?
I haven't seen the lap times either, but I know that bike is very competitive at Chuckwalla, which I know Chuckwalla is unlike any of the tracks that we go to, but
sure.
But I know they've been testing it and working with it for years. They had that bike in the paddock. Orange Cat did all last season, and Brendan Kettleson had a lot of involvement on that bike as well. So I just feel like it's obviously going to be competitive, absolutely. And we know the Energica was too. I mean, that thing. And there's that zero getting off the line is insane with those motorcycles.
Yeah, and I was disappointed in the Energetica that because it worked almost everywhere but Daytona. One of the CVN videos that I did was I was filming them with some of their pit stops, and mainly because I'm just obsessed with Stefano Mesa. I just think he's just such a ridiculous young rider, and just has so much talent, and it really hurt to see SDK take him out at the Team Hammer School and him miss a whole season. I mean, it just so anyway, to digress, what was happening with their bike at Daytona, and I only saw it happen at Daytona, was that thing just, it really kept overheating with the pace at Daytona and what was happening, but it seemed like it worked everywhere else. And so
they didn't have any problems the rest of the year. Yeah.
So I wonder if all of the electric bikes are going to have that problem at Daytona, or if that was specific to the Energetica, because they seem to have their act together. It just, that bike didn't work at Daytona. It kept coming in with alarms sounding and going off and everything, and no one knew even what was going on with it. It was like alarms that they didn't even know it was supposed to have, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's incredible, the development curve on those electric bikes. I mean, how there's so much innovation every year, battery technology. I just think that Light Fighter, and the Light Fighter is a purpose-built race bike. The Energica, great bike, but it's a street bike as well. So there were some compromises with it a little bit, but still a great bike. And Energica is supposed to try to get back here at some point. and I don't know when it's going to happen, but that Light Fighter seems like it's proven itself pretty well. It's cool that they're going to have two of them. I'm really happy to have Caleb DeCarroll back in our paddock and be with Perrin as well. So that's cool.
Yeah. I think that's what an amazing opportunity. I mean, if you're gonna be a young guy coming into the sport, riding something new and different and trying to make a mark, I mean, having Josh as a perhaps mentor / teammate,
right.
I mean, that's fantastic.
I
wonder if at some point we're going to get back to having a race of electric motorcycles, even if it's like a one-off. Remember 2007, 2008 with the AMA Superbike Championship, we had an electric bike race at Sonoma, and the funny thing was nobody even knew it was happening because you couldn't hear them.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear them take off for the warm-up lap, and you couldn't hear them start because they were all silent. But then all of a sudden you saw like, oh, there's something on the racetrack, and everyone walked over, standing at the fence line, trying to watch these silent motorcycles go around the racetrack. And maybe that's the only caveat to why electric motorcycles may not be good for racing. And this was a point brought up by Roy Jansen, and I think everybody here has probably met Roy Jansen, maybe except for Simcoe. But Roy Jansen, who he built the Supercross championship with Feld, he built the Monster Jam and all this other stuff, and his complaint about electric motorcycles was that it'll never work because they're not loud. People run to the fences for loud things, right? People go to drag racing.
King of the baggers.
Yeah. Well, even drag racing. If drag racing was silent, is it cool? Right.
Right.
And I'm not arguing either way. But is drag racing cool if you had these giant 350 mile an hour monsters going a quarter mile, but they didn't make any noise? Are they cool? And that was just one of the things that Roy Jansen would always sort of argue. And he was like, it's never going to work. It's never going to happen because they're not loud. There's no noise being generated, and people like noise. So it's just an interesting concept.
We love noise.
Yeah, we do love noise.
We love noise.
And as crazy as that is, they can develop these motorcycles all they want, but and maybe the answer is looking to Formula E, right? They're looking to Formula One and the electric car championship. Is the Formula E class interesting or popular because all of those cars are silent?
Right. And then you wonder if there's going to be hybrid stuff, like the hybrids they're doing in IndyCar and Formula One and all that. I mean, maybe it's going to be some combustion, some internal combustion, some battery. Yeah.
That should be the 200. That should be the 200 class.
That would be cool. That'd be cool.
Can you do 200 miles without adding gas?
That's right. That'd be
have
cool.
Its own exclusive class just for that. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, interesting for sure.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, listen, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. We're at 2 hours and 30 minutes into this podcast.
Crazy.
Is that a record? Is that a record for this podcast?
No, Pat, the longest podcast I ever did was with Cole King, man. So I had Sean, Cole, right?
Yes.
So I had Cole on when I interview people when they first come on my podcast. It's all about their background story. Where did it all begin? He talked literally for an hour and 3 minutes straight without
stopping.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be. So it was almost 4 hours. With him, so it was
a long time.
It was, but it went by super fast. But I knew I was in for a long haul after that first hour and 2 minutes with him doing this the whole time. I was like, let's go, right? But yeah.
Well, look, guys, for me, Pat, you're an absolute legend.
He's a legend.
You're the plaque at down on the beach isn't enough. And I think that my hope is that you are able, as you sort of step away from Daytona and step away from the duties of announcing down there, that you feel the passion that everybody's had for you in that role, and that you feel the amount of history that you've been able to create for us down there, and that you look back and that you're really proud of the work that you've put in down there, because you've literally been an inspiration for a lot of us, and just we're gonna miss your voice as the voice of Daytona Bike Week. moving forward. And I'm just super humbled having the opportunity to work with you and Richard in the past. And even though we haven't worked together very long, I see you as a mentor to me because I've patterned myself after you for so long. And I think that you've been such a professional and such an inspiration, such an icon for everybody else that comes after you. So well done.
Absolute legend.
Kenny, I appreciate the kind words, but as I said, it is an absolute honor, and it has been over the decades to announce all of the Bike Week races and then the races in the fall, particularly with my good friend and brother from another mother, Richard Chambers. And I thought with Richard's passing, it was time for me to hand that microphone over to somebody like yourself to take over and work with the Moto America team of announcers. Had a great time last year working with them, but we're still going to be involved with the Daytona 200 Monument, Chris Clamford, Al Charles, and all of their volunteers that come out and help maintain the monument. Really some incredible people that have been coming to Daytona for decades. So we're going to look forward to that on Wednesday, the breakfast on Thursday, and then we'll come hang out at the Speedway for 3 days. And hopefully the weather's going to be great, and we're going to see 3 incredible races. And I predict 8 to 12 riders coming out of the chicane on lap number 57. Who's going to win the Daytona 200? God, who knows? But should be an incredible Daytona Bike Week. We look forward to getting out of the cold and snow and getting down there into some Florida warmth and sunshine. Although they have had some snow and cold there, they had a really nasty week, but it's warmed up, and looks like Sunday I'll be watching the 4-wheel motorcycles, the Daytona 500, and looking forward to catching that race on Sunday.
Absolutely. So if anybody wants to be part of that Daytona 200 Monument celebration, where we're going to induct 12 new people that have been influential to the Daytona 200 road race, we're going to do that Wednesday, March the 4th at the Daytona 200 Monument on the beach, which is right behind the Daytona Hilton, right?
Yep.
And you can park right across the street. There's a parking garage there. You can park all day. You just walk across the street. It's right behind. What I always use is there's a Bubba Gump restaurant there, and one of my nicknames is Gump. So that's just how I remember it. But so you just walk through the little breezeway there. There's a surf shop if you need some some suntan lotion or something. You just walk through the little breezeway there. You go around the Bubba Gump shrimp, and then you'll see the stone patio and the platform and the wall, and you start to see all that there. So we're going to be down there. Pat and I will probably be there about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock or so. We'll get down there early. We're going to have, we got to set up PA equipment, all kinds of other stuff. But that ceremony is supposed to start at 10 o'clock. I think it went for about an hour, 2 hours last year. Or last couple of years.
I mean, it'll run till at least 12 noon, maybe 1 o'clock. As we said, there Richard's special plaque that'll be part of the new wall section, as well as 11 other plaques are going to be unveiled for different racers, motorcyclists. It's a real cross section. And the other thing is Don Emdy, 1972 Daytona 200 champion. Don's got that incredible book, and he's always been so supportive of the monument. He's going to send a whole bunch of books that will be selling with proceeds going to support the monument. And we thank Don Emdy for his support and all of the other people that support that Daytona 200 monument. It really is a special place.
Absolutely. You always have a guest of honor down there. Do we know who the guest of honor is going to be for this year?
I think they're still putting all of that together. I'll be checking in with Al Charles and Christy Clamford, who I said they've done an incredible job of continuing the work that her dad, Dick Clamford, and her mother, Bev, started. And boy, do you meet some incredible people and some very special people, particularly at the breakfast, where there's some very interesting stories. And sadly, that was the last opportunity I had to work with Richard Chambers, was at that Over the Hill Gang breakfast last March. But as I said, Daytona won't quite be the same without my good buddy that I spent so many years announcing with and hanging out. But look forward to getting down to Daytona for the celebration there that'll celebrate his life.
Yeah. And then one of the other fun things that you and Richard used to do there is one of the last things that you did before that whole party would break up is you actually do a mock call of the final lap of the Daytona 200 for the guest of honor. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I was there when you did that for Stefano Mesa, and he was so humbled by it. You and Richard literally announcing the last lap with Stefano Mesa as the winner of the Daytona 200, and he just lit up, and he was like, I mean, but the fact that you get Richard Chambers and Pat Gonzalez to call your final lap to the checkered flag, I mean, how cool is that?
Right?
Well, it was the year that they were celebrating John Ashmead after John had passed away, and at the Speedway, Michael Barnes took his bike out for a lap as part of the opening ceremonies. But that year, when we called Ashmead's final lap, we had Richard and myself, and why am I drawing a blank on the vintage racer who English racer did the Chris Carter announcers. So he was Chris Carter, who we worked with for many, many years. And we had fun doing that. We'll see if we can come up with something, Kenny, you and I, to celebrate there. But look forward to seeing everybody out at the Daytona Monument on Wednesday, March the 4th. Should be a wonderful day.
100%.
Yep. Sean, how would you what are your final thoughts on getting to Daytona and Daytona Bike Week 2026 and the Daytona 200 with everything that you've got it from an insider's perspective within Moto America? What are your final thoughts?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the idea of when you go through that tunnel and you just look up and you see that banking, it's like, it's absolutely incredible. So iconic. I always, when I was younger, I always thought, I aspired to go to see the Daytona 500. I've never seen the Daytona 500 in person, but I've been to a bunch of 200s, and I just love the fact that, the infield, the pit stops, everything about that race, everything about that track. It's really incredible. And it's cool to start there because, like Pat said, I mean, we come from colder climates, and it's always nice to get down there and get spring a little bit early. That's kind of nice, and hopefully it'll be like that again. It's great it's great that we're back to it being part of our Super Sport Championship as well with the points. It really should be that way. It's the way it always starts. The Daytona 500 is the biggest race for NASCAR. The 200 ought to be the biggest race for us in Moto America and Super Sports specifically. So,
amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well, I mean, guys, you're both legends, and the amount of history, the amount of history and knowledge that the two of you have just going into this is really special. And when Chris and I were sitting down talking about this, we were like, yeah, like we really need to do a Daytona pre-show, and we got to have Pat on. And then Pat wasn't really sure because he's at an event this weekend. So thanks for taking time out of your day, Pat, for hanging out with us knuckleheads. And then Sean, you were out of country, or you were on vacation, so we weren't sure if we were going to get anybody. And then literally on the same day, Pat, Sean was like, "Yeah, cool, I'm in." And then Pat was like, "Yep, I can do it." We're like, "Cool, we're going to have both of them."
This was fun.
So
this was really fun.
I appreciate it. And if people haven't had the opportunity, please, obviously, Sean, yourself, and Paul Carruthers have done a ton of podcasts that are on the Moto America Live Plus platform, and obviously you can find those distributed through other podcast platforms. Where specifically can people find all those podcasts with you, Sean?
Oh, I mean, they're on Apple Podcasts, they're on Buzzsprout, but we also have them all on our website. We have them on our website. They're also on YouTube as well. So pretty much everywhere you can find them. And it's a little bit in limbo right now what the plan is going to be, but I've got something planned kind of in a podcast type of thing coming up pretty soon here, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to say too much more about that, but because I don't, I want to make sure it's going to go together. But yeah, we did, nearly 350 episodes. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy that we put that many together, and they weren't as long as this one. I will tell you, I could never get called past about 45 minutes. Sometimes we went an hour, but he'd always be telling me enough with the questions, and I'm like, I never want to stop. So
you sound like me. I don't ever want to stop. I'm like,
yeah, I know, Chris. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're similar in that respect. Yeah,
110%. Yeah, gentlemen, listen, it's been an absolute honor to sit down with each and every single one of you. Sean, I know me
likewise.
And you met several times. Pat, this is the first time me and you got to meet. I cannot wait to meet you at Daytona in person. Sean, of course, it's always an honor to see you. I cannot wait to see you again in Daytona. Matter of fact,
yes.
Sean, me and you need to schedule our own podcast.
Yeah, we need to do that. I know we were trying to do it, and I was like, it was probably because if I was doing that other one, and I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do it, but now I'm a little.
It's going to be 5 hours long.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. It'll be the world record for sure. And then Pat, of course, listen, an honor. When I got invited with Kenny and Azra, man, I was super. I can't stress how nervous I was because I knew I had big shoes to kind of fill, right? And all the love that I got from that weekend's been absolutely amazing. And I just want to say thank you, Pat, for all the years and memories in my head of that voice you've always had.
That voice.
It will never leave. It will not be the same without you there. So thank you so much for everything you've done for our sport and continue to do for our sport. You are an absolute legend, and I cannot wait to meet you in person. And yeah, it's
looking forward, Chris. Looking forward to seeing you and Kenny and Sean. Of course, I'll come and I'll bug him in the media center there.
I love it.
For that.
I love it.
So yeah, I'll be still scooting through the garages doing my homework, and any way I can help when I'm down there, other than my Daytona 200 monument duties. Happy to help out, but sometimes it's just good putting the microphone away and the headsets and just being a road race fan.
That's great. I agree with you wholeheartely. Yeah,
absolutely. So 2 things before we go. One, I really wanted to promote the Moto America Live Plus program. Just in case we have anybody watching that isn't already on Moto America Live Plus. The early bird pricing is like $90. You can get that for like the next couple weeks, and then it goes up to $110 for the season. So go to motoamerica.com. Click on the Live Plus. It'll ask you to subscribe. It's super simple, and then you just put it on auto renewal, and off it goes.
Mine's on auto renewal, 100%, right? And you can also get it out the App Store, whether it's Samsung or Apple, whatever. You can download the app and do the same thing. So
and hey, Kenny, one thing I want to tease you guys with for a second. So Live Plus, absolutely live streaming, and I mean it's great to see. You get to see Michael Hill and Mike on the mic and all that, and he will be at Daytona. I also want to mention, so I'm going to tease this. I can't say too much about it, but we're going to be involved with a new broadcast, a new way to consume Moto America broadcast. It's there's a partnership. It's the press release is coming out pretty soon, but it's pretty cool. It's very different, and we stay pretty well at the forefront of how to get our stuff out so our fans can consume our product. So look for news to come on that. That's cool too.
Love fantastic. Yeah. So thanks for that, Sean. And then the second thing, if you haven't already bought tickets for Daytona, you can do that on Daytona International Speedway's website, which is super simple. It's DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. You can get your Supercross tickets, your short track tickets, your Daytona 200/Superbike tickets from there, as well as coordinate your infield camping. They have tent camping and RV camping. We're going to be camping there. So you can do all that through the Daytona Speedway website. And before we go, Pat, I need you to talk about the one thing that everybody likes to do is they try to replicate you talking about Ducati way in which you say it. And I can't leave this podcast until you give us that Pat Gonzalez Ducati speech. So I know you're good at making things up on the fly. Give us a little paragraph about Ducatis at Daytona, will you please?
And here is Josh Herron coming off of turn 4 of the Super Speedway. As Josh Herron heads to the tri-oval, the checkered flag is ready, and he will win his 4th Daytona 200 on that Ducati.
And you guys got it, folks. The winner, 2026 winner.
Amen.
You guys heard it here first, right? Let's
Amen.
go.
Good night. Mic drop.
I love it. I love it. Love it. All right, gentlemen. Listen, this has been a lot of fun.
Daytona.
Yes, I will see every single one of you at Daytona. This episode will be out in about 20 minutes everywhere, Spotify, iHeart, all that good stuff. I'll tag everybody. The reason why I didn't tag you guys is because I didn't want to put the announcement on my 3 special guests coming on to kind of ruin it. But absolute honor, Sean Bice, to really have you on. Love you.
Thank you, guys.
Your work.
Good to be on with you.
Absolute legend. No, absolutely, Pat, bro. Listen, absolute honor, my friend. Absolutely. And Kenny, nothing but love, my friend. You already know.
Nothing but love for Kenny.
You guys are all legends.
You too, Kenny.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, we are out of here. We'll catch you guys at Daytona. Let's go. Right. All right.
Let's go.
Everybody stay on for a few minutes so
Yeah.
the program can wrap up. Yep.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, Pin the Gas Podcast delivers the adrenaline rush of the racetrack straight to your ears. Whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. On your favorite podcast app, join Simcoe as he takes you on a high-speed journey through the world of motorcycle racing. Pin the Gas Podcast.